I wish I saw the movie again.
The music got to me in a very certain way.
Raggedy Ann and Andy is a full-length musical adventure. Directed by Richard Williams, winner of an Academy Award for A Christmas Carol, with original songs and music by Joe Raposo, the man who made Sesame Street sing. And if you think it's just a story about dolls, you're in for a surprise.
The plot was really, really good.
Best adventure was when they were in the taffy pit. It was really funny.
Hey, this is real sticky.
Raggedy Ann and Andy has enough fun and excitement, enough crazy joy to keep everyone in the family happy.
He was funny.
It's coming soon from Bob's Merrill, the publishing people of ITT, and released by 20th Century Fox, Raggedy Ann and Andy. The musical adventure that has the critics raving.
I can't.
I've not even started drinking yet, and yet...
What are you drinking, by the way? Tell us.
Well, I've basically decided to bring out the cider for this one. And not before you watch the movie. It's for after you watch it.
Or during?
I wouldn't even recommend during. You might throw up if you drink while watching the damn thing.
That's a good point, actually, especially a certain sequence.
Let's...
So, I have an all-malt cider, passion fruit and apple.
And I have...
You old romantic. The bottle is calling me a you old romantic, by the way.
I have a Recordaling, strawberry and lime cider here. It's premium. And it has pear in it as well, apparently.
Well, cheers, mate.
Yep. How is that?
That's the stuff. It's already taking effect.
Ugh. That's what I needed, actually.
That's good. Okay, so... Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Don't drink too hard, man.
I had to have another swig as soon as he said that.
Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Cheers.
Okay, we're not gonna swig again.
I guess
We're gonna be here all day.
So here's a little, a little drinking game for you guys. Every time we mention the title, you take a swing. Every time we talk about the style, every time we complain about the songs, you take a swing. Okay?
In other words, you want people to die from...
Oh, we'll die way earlier than anyone else. Let's talk about the production history of Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Cheers. It's actually quite good.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if we can get drunk before long. Hopefully we can.
Well, yeah, I mean, the alcoholic volume on this is 4.0, I believe.
Right.
So...
Right. That's exactly what the doctor didn't order, but I'm going to pretend he did. So, Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Cheers. Okay, no, it doesn't count this time.
That's not counted.
Was a 1977 animation film interspersed with a few live-action scenes, and I've got to say the transition between live-action and animation is probably the best aspect of the film, visually speaking, but it is also redundant. It gets repetitious and old quite fast, because it's always happening in the same way, with a close-up to the doll, to the face of the doll, and the transition, slow transition, fading away in between live action and the animation portion, which is, uncannily enough, quite faithful to the shape and the movement of a rag doll. Again, the rag doll of Raggedy Ann. And that's a problem in its own right, and I'll get to that soon enough.
Yes, we'll get to that at some point.
More interestingly, this was also the debut of an early but innovative CGI system developed by Computer Creations Corp. It's called Video Cell. So, an animated film from 1977 using an early CGI technology. This is the most interesting part of the film from a technical standpoint, seeing as the CGI in question is actually very well implemented with the traditional animation. And you did not even notice that it's there?
Yeah, because you would assume that the characters' movements were rotoscoped in some way, but no, apparently not. The uncanny movement is not from that sort of usual, simple explanation.
Which would be a far more typical technique of the time yet. But no, it's an early example of CGI, which does explain how can you do those very disjointed, unsettling, and downright creepy doll movements without using a real person.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
So, let's talk about the people involved in this project.
This is actually not a long backstory, but simply put,
Interesting backstory.
It's an interesting backstory. Abe Levito was the first to be directing this film.
You're drunk already?
Yes. Was first to be directing this film, alongside Williams, who was
Richard Williams.
Yeah, Richard Williams, who was an animation supervisor, essentially.
Yes, at the time he was already known for his Oscar-winning short adaptation of Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Which I believe was from 1971. I could be wrong, though.
Yes, I mean...
I'm getting drunk, so...
Yes, that's Raggedy Ann's fault.
That's...
I mean, not
you said it! You said it! Cheers, mate!
Raggedy Andy, I meant to say. Levito, during the production, sadly became ill and passed away due to it, though.
So Richard Williams was forced to sit in the direction chair, even though he really did not want to have anything to do with this film.
Yeah, just because.
And I wonder why.
Oh, yes.
Who wouldn't want to work on this masterpiece?
Apparently there was a multitude of reasons, which echoes with me and Madhog here.
Yes, pretty
quite
much.
a lot.
So I can relate with Williams. He said the film had too much padding, it had pacing problems, and he wanted to cut something. He especially wanted to cut some of the songs, because the songs are many, and they're not good.
There's 20 of them.
And the reason why the producers, I should say, did not want to cut anything is because, clearly, they had a record label attached to it. In fact, let's go discover this record label. Because Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure, cheers, the soundtrack, by Columbia Records, it features all 11 songs from the film. I should point out that the film is less than 90 minutes long.
11 songs on one side, but there's 9 more on the other side.
It has 9 songs on side 1, and 11 more songs on side 2 of the disc.
Just to basically put it to you folks, on cassette tapes you could play both sides of the tape. So essentially, when you were done with one side of the tape, you would then switch it around so you could play the other side, essentially.
The same counts for vinyls. So, if my math is correct...
Yes.
How much is 11 plus 9 again?
20 songs.
20 songs, everybody! 90 minutes, 20 songs. Again, 90 minutes, 20 songs.
90 minutes,
20 songs. Are any of those songs any good? No!
forgettable!
They are the most forgettable and pointless songs I've ever heard in my life.
And they don't...
It's clear that they've been forced down our throat because there was a lucrative record label attached to it. Of course, since the film flopped big time, then it was completely pointless.
Oh, yes.
In fact, let me point this out. The budget for this film was $4 million.
Yes, about $4 million. That was the budget of the entire film. That is a lot for 1970.
Yes, well, it was a period in which animation was generally much more cheap and limited for budget reason. The industry, the eye industry of the animation, as I put it, was dying because they were no longer a lucrative form of money-making, so to speak. Which sounds redundant, as I said it like this. So to have this film happening in 77 is mesmerizing for many reasons, given the ridiculous high quality and fluidity, full motion fluidity of the animation. By the way, yes, 4 million budget, it made back 1.35 million. By rentals alone.
Yeah, just so keep that in mind. They only made that money through rentals.
This is the very definition of a bomb.
I feel sorry for any child who was subjected to this animation back in the day. Oh yeah, another thing. The animation was not done by just any so-and-so.
No.
They were done by actual people with experience in the business.
I mean, it definitely show, and I do recognize some very specific styles, including the way the king, what's his name, was animated.
We have animators from...
What was his name again? Dang, I forgot.
Yes, I forgot too. It's like as if it's like as if the...
Oh yeah, I remember. King Cuckoo.
Oh yeah.
Stupid name, I'm glad I forget it.
Yes, it's like as if the film just, kind of failed to solidify the character in the film.
Yes,
but
the characters.
Yes,
also, another complaint that Richard Williams has that reflects our own is
so
that the characters were really not characters. They had bare minimum presence of a personality, and they were not developed in the slightest. Why? Because you had to make way for 20 songs, pointless filler.
So like I was saying, the animators on board with this were people from Disney, Looney Tunes...
Let me read some of these names in case you are an aficionados of old school animation.
Yes, please do.
Let's see. We have Hal Ambro, Cosmo Anzilotti,
Art
Babbitt, all amazing names, by the way, George Bakes, Warren Batchelder, John Bruno, Jerry Chinicki. I actually don't know if I'm pronouncing
I
this
don't know
right.
if I'm saying it either, but...
it's a name. Corey Cole, Doug Crane, Ray Da Silva, Tissa David, Chuck Downs, Emery Hawkins, Fred Elmick, John Kimball, Crystal Clabondi, Grim Natwick, Spencer Peel, Gerald Potterton, Willie Spile, I love these names, Tom Roth, Jack Schnerk, Irvin Spence, I remember him, Art Vitello. Also assistant animators David Block, Lauren Bowie, Michelle Clay, John Celestri, Sheldon Cohen, James A. Davis, Jerry Dvorak, Glenn Entis, Brad Frost, Jay Jacoby, Jeffrey Guthrell, John Argaud, Eric Goldberg, Leslie Gorin, Murad Guman, Judith Hans, Dan Haskett, Patricia Hoyt, Ellen Komar, Susan Croyer, Judy Levito, must be either the wife or the daughter of Abe, Jim Logan, Karen Marjorie Banks, Marlene Robinson May, Carol Milliken, Jack Mongovan, Alyssa Meyerson, Lester Pegas Jr., Karen Peterson, Kevin Petrilak, Barney Posner, Mitch Rockon, Louis Scarborough Jr., mind you, Tom Cito, Michael Sporn, Mary Zilagil, Peggy Tonkonogi, Dwayne Ulrich, Chang Yuan, James Wang, all a name, by the way, Amanda Wilson. I meant to say Amanda Wilson.
Yeah.
All these people worked on this film. Cheers, mate.
Oh, that's good for the old corpus. Oh,
it's good for the whole Scarborough.
by the way, just because I feel it's necessary to mention, Tissa David apparently became the first woman to animate a leading character in a major film. And
That is an important pioneering achievement. It's just so bad, it's happening in Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Cheers!
Yeah, cheers! And the funny thing is, the composer of the music was a Joe Raposo, who was apparently a long-time director for Sesame Street and the Electric Company.
I feel so bad for him and for Sesame Street.
I feel so bad for everybody who is involved in this thing.
Also, something that might explain why the animation feels so disjointed and incoherent
Oh, yeah.
is because all the animators were actually working from home. So this is the case in which the right hand does not know what the other 255 left hands are doing.
You would have thought this was done in a big studio, but no. Apparently they decided to do the animation separately from each other and then just cobble it together? Is that it? With only like a paper-thin script?
Honestly, yes, I think the script is the least important element in this film. The animation takes center stage. I mean, they clearly care about their craft and they are passionate about it and they wanted to put everything they've got into bringing to life these characters. And they did it to such a degree that the film is almost unwatchable, ironically. And we had to explain why that is. But first... Oh God.
And we only just started talking about this.
And by the way, Richard Williams, I should point this out,
Yeah.
the animation director for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So you know he is a talented guy.
And knows what he's talking about
Yes,
as well.
he definitely knew what he was talking about when criticizing the idiocy of this film.
Of the production,
The
might I add.
production, my God, I'm sweating like a pig while burping at the same time. This is the most disgusting podcast we've ever recorded in such a close distance from
Yes.
one another. The condition in which we are recording this podcast, the condition we are in at the moment, is a perfect representation of what it feels like to experience, say it with me,
Yeah.
Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure!
Yo!
Oh, don't do that.
Oh.
So, an interesting aspect about the premise of this film, and even the narrative as a whole, is that it basically wants to be Alice in Wonderland. And at the same time, it's a precursor to Toy Story.
Yeah, because there's a lot of elements in this that is very similar to Toy Story, which Madhog mentioned.
Yes, I mean, the premise itself is like, the toys are alive, but the kids do not know that they are alive. There is a new toy on the block, and there's trouble brewing relating to the new toy, and then there is a journey to go back and find that toy, and then they return home, more appreciative of said home. It's basically the basic plot structure you see in Toy Story 1.
To a degree, the sequel as well.
Even better, it's basically Toy Story 2, come to think of it.
Yes, because, with Woody as well, basically having to
they
find
go after
Woody.
him and all that, except not good.
Yeah.
And the Alice in Wonderland part, well, let me tell you all about that. Alice in Wonderland, the world itself, the Wonderland as it were,
Yeah.
it's not something that's made to make sense. It doesn't. And the reason why it makes no sense is because it's supposed to be a grotesque mirror and parody of reality. But that's the important key differentiation in between this world and the world in which, Alice comes from. This is a different world that mirrors reality. It is not a world within the world of reality. It's a mirror, a different universe altogether. Then it can get away with everything it throws at you. Because the point is that it's not supposed to have a point. Right?
Right.
Other than satirical deconstruction of British society and all that, but who cares? The problem I find in this approach, as it is applied in Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure.
Never drink, folks.
The point that I really dislike is that There's never a moment in which the reality, as in the real world, which is the live-action world,
Yes.
as I said, is completely separated from the animated wacky fantasy world. Because it always feels like the animated fantasy world is taking place within reality.
Yeah.
It's just a different point of view, the point of view of the toys. And with that said...
There's a lot of scenes that don't make sense to how it should look in reality compared to a
Yes,
toy.
they went into a series of locations that really don't make sense in the context of the backdrop that is the real world.
Yeah, and you
If
can't...
it were to be a completely separated universe, okay, then I can buy into
half the things that...
half the things that it throws at us as it is, but since it's supposed to be the real world but seen from a different toy-like perspective, then it makes no sense that it would be so weird, alienating, and unexplained overall. I mean, I guess the sea at the end of it was a pool in the backyard, but that doesn't explain what was the castle of King Cuckoo, and most importantly, it does not explain what the hell was the deal with the Taffy Pit. The Taffy Pit! Oh my god.
How does that make sense in the context of the real world? I have no idea.
Okay, so before we move on to talk about the animation and what exactly doesn't work about it, and it's the most egregious part of it, really.
Yes.
Let's talk about the songs a little bit more.
Uh,
Because, okay, so in a musical, right?
Yes, I
In
know.
a musical, songs serve the purpose of either establishing the world and the conflict
Or
and
the
the characters,
characters.
and then moving the plot along, right?
Yes, they do. That's what they usually should be doing.
So, of all these 20 freaking songs, only 2 or 3 of them actually move a plot along, or introduce a character, or, you know, a conflict, or any of that.
I would more say meander rather than move the plot.
Meander the plot about, because yes, the plot meanders quite meanderingly, I have to say. Pacing problems, massive pacing problems.
The pacing problems is not even a problem. It is a detriment. Whoever was working on this, story-wise, cut the leg off, both legs of the story.
Our legs.
Yeah, it cut off both legs of the story. Just so that it would
have
feel...
more songs.
Just so it could crawl and sing.
Yes.
That's what
My gosh.
that's the only way to describe
There is a song
this.
every 30 seconds, on average.
Well, I
And
was...
most of those songs are just featuring characters standing around and singing, and not doing much of anything else. In fact, all of the songs are like that. For all the creativity and nightmare fuel imagery that this film throws at our collective faces, the songs themselves are ironically the least creative moments and the most boring and dull ones.
Okay, so take this, right, as an example. La La Land, despite the fact that everything in between the
Ending.
actual songs and the ending, it's
And
quite...
the beginning.
And the beginning, it's quite boring and...
It's Oscar bait,
and
quintessential Oscar bait.
Yes, but the songs themselves are very catchy and...
Well,
they're
at least the first one is.
Yeah, take the first one, for example. The first one is very catchy, it draws you into the overly exaggerated emotions and...
It introduces the world and it establishes the rules and what the theme is.
Yes, but in Raggedy Ann and Andy, the Big Musical Adventure...
Oh, drink.
So, in the beginning of this film, it's like this slow build-up of
A little girl.
A little girl goes into the house, making sure that Raggedy Ann has brain damage before the movie begins.
Oh yes, that was actually quite amusing. She's dragging Raggedy by her feet and her head is busting on the stairs.
Of the abode.
Of the abode, yes.
Yes, then you basically see her put the toy down, and she leaves the room, and suddenly it does the transition, which is a...
Very
it's
nice animation.
It's a simple transition.
I say it's a very smooth transition, as long as you keep the camera on a very close-up of the main character, because
Yeah.
as soon as you have a pan of the entire room, after the 2D animation lifting, as it were,
Yeah.
it looks already kind of wrong.
Yeah. So then, after a little bit of talking, then the first song begins, which is
I've seen the world outside, it's kind of cool, and that's that.
yeah, that's pretty much what the song is. It's basically Raggedy Ann talking about how wonderful the world outside is, with all the other characters being super curious about how it looks.
It looks horrifying.
Yes.
So then Raggedy Andy is introduced like the Wicked Witch of the East
Yeah,
for some reason.
because it crushed under the thing.
And he has his own introductory song that tells us what it's all about. He's not a girl's toy.
Yeah, he's a
boy's
boy's toy.
He
He's
doesn't
brave.
want to drink tea or doing girly stuff. He wants to have adventures. And you know all of these elements that are supposed to be introductory elements to get us to know these characters and what their arc will be like.
I have to...
You can forget about that, because whatever arc they were supposed to have, it gets forgotten in the shuffling of all of the songs and everything else that you are exposed during this film. Only to be very forcibly reinstated for the reprisal of Ann's song at the end.
And not Andy's.
Nobody cares about Andy. The actor playing as Andy, the voice actor that is, clearly doesn't care because he sounded drunk the entire time.
Hey,
like
just
we
like
do! Cheers, mate!
Cheers, mate!
Oh, that's the good stuff. Again.
It's really nice.
So, oh my gosh, and everybody has a song even though they shouldn't. The new toy is introduced, which is a creepy-looking French doll that's surprisingly the least creepy-looking character once she's animated.
That is really weird, because I always find porcelain dolls extremely creepy.
But here's the thing, once she's animated, she's the most human-looking character of the bunch. So in that sense, she has the best proportions, actual limbs with joints. So she looks the least unsettling in that regard.
And she looks the least uncanny compared to everybody else, essentially.
And she has a song.
Of course she has a song.
Of course, and it's boring. And then there is the pirate inside
the snow globe.
And he has a song.
It's actually one of the first few songs that actually sounds good, but it's interspersed with all the other characters interrupting it. And the dialogue, which is non-existent, essentially.
The dialogue is more like an excuse to get to the next song, really.
Yes. I mean, that's another thing I have a problem with overall. Usually a musical, or say even a Disney musical, any song that would come before it has a point of existing. It has a bridge to get to that song.
Yeah,
but
it's a clever way to have shortcuts for plot-related reasons so that the pacing doesn't suffer.
In Raggedy Ann and Andy, there's they barely even try to give a bridge to anything.
Everything is song, song, song. There is a new character, he gets a song. There is a new
element in the room.
He gets a song. They take a step towards the plot. There is a song.
A song unrelated to...
The pirate gets another song to say how much he loves his own parrot later on.
Oh my god.
What stupidity is this? And that song is happening while another song is happening in another point of, the film. Song within songs. Oh my god. The only one who doesn't get a song is King Cuckoo for some reason. And usually the villain does get a song.
That is very weird. I mean, you do get loyal subjects singing for him.
I guess that counts.
No, it doesn't really count to me because the villain is the main singer, usually. So it doesn't count to me.
What happens to Rattigan? Oh, Rattigan.
Oh, yeah.
So that worked. I mean, the villain was the main singer, and the henchman served as a backing chorus, so to speak. You need to sell the vinyls, guys! Have all the songs in this film! Songify these! Cheers! I could be sitting here and spend the entire day complaining about the awful songs, how much they don't contribute to anything at all, almost entirely.
And they're all forgettable.
Absolutely. I cannot even remember what one of these 20 songs sounded like.
I can't remember what
We just
lyrics...
saw the film minutes ago.
Yeah, we saw it like an hour ago because we decided to break for lunch after seeing it.
We also brought out the liqueur, obviously.
Yeah, we brought out the cider because, to be honest... Both me and Madhog were so drained by the experience.
I was shambling incoherently towards this room earlier.
What was...
I looked like a rag doll.
I mean, this is the last day Madhog's here in England. And this is how we basically finish it, with Raggedy Ann and the Big Musical Adventure.
Cheers.
And...
At least the cider is good.
I mean, yeah, that's the... I mean...
It's not overly disgustingly sweet like Iron Brew. Screw you, Scotland!
So... Essentially, all these songs are entirely forgettable, they don't leave a lasting impact, and they don't serve anything to the plot. Yeah.
So there is a song related to a character, which is the worst character of the film by far, which is that one horse camel guy with a southern accent that we don't care about. Okay, his song, because of course he has to have a song, is entirely framed by the fact that he cannot stand upright on his own. So what happens? Raggedy Ann and Andy, in the midst of their own musical adventure, it doesn't count.
Yes,
Don't
I
drink.
know. I'm not gonna.
They basically pick him up and help him stand on his feet. He starts singing. In the middle of the song, he slumps down, and they have to help him again stand up. And then he continues singing, and when the song is finished, he slumps down again! So they had to help him a third time! What is this? What is this?
I mean, that's the least of the film's problems, in my opinion.
Well, everything is this film's problem. And let's talk about the animation, the most frustrating, brain-melting, saddening and depressing element to discuss in the entire film.
To be honest, the animation is, despite it being a technical marvel, this dream team of animators from many different walks of animating life, essentially.
That all were working from home.
And all working from home, no less. So all that deserves a lot of respect for what actually went into it. But
the animation is fantastic, is fluid, extremely detailed, unnecessarily so, one might say.
Yes.
There isn't a single moment, a single frame of animation that's not displaying some sort of technical competency in some level or the other. By all intents and purposes, it's a full motion animation, not too dissimilar from what Disney used to do in the golden days. Except somehow even more filled with unnecessary motion and movement, which becomes a problem.
It is an extreme problem.
You can do it, man. I believe in you.
It is an extreme problem.
An extremely problematic issue. I have never thought I would come out and say that too much animation is not a good thing.
Yes, I think...
And for various reasons. And Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure, is a proof of that.
It is Exhibit A of why people should give up 2D animation.
No, it's Exhibit A why limited animation, the invention of the style of limited animation by UPA, was necessary to keep the medium of animation alive. Because there are cases, specific cases mind you, in which too much realistic movement, too much photorealistic animation can become detrimental to the style and the story and
to the
whatever you're doing, essentially.
And to
the medium itself.
To the eye of the viewer, especially, as well.
Yes, when it becomes too busy, too motion-friendly, as it were, and every scene, every moment is like that, then there barely is any scene that stands out. If you put all of your talent in every single scene, in every single moment, then the supposed very special scenes of the film, which are usually the ones who have the best animation and the best quality, they will not feel as special. That counts for any sort of film, live action or animated, or anywhere in between. But that's not even the biggest problem of Raggedy Ann and Andy, the musical adventure. The biggest problem is that this animation, this overly realistic, detailed, obsessive-compulsive animation, is absolutely nigh unwatchable. It is really good, but it is absolutely awful to look at. And the reason for that is because the character design...
The animation doesn't complement the overall simplistic design of the characters.
No, worse than that. The animation makes the already uncanny-looking design characters look even more creepy, unsettling, and uncanny. Okay, I'll give you an example of this. There were short animations of Raggedy Ann and Andy made by Chuck Jones for television. Those were made in limited animation style, obviously for budget reasons.
Yeah.
But you know, since they were cartoon characters, it complemented them very well. Because again, cartoon characters do not have, or do not need, I should say, realistic looking movement, because they're cartoons! In Raggedy Ann and Andy, the artists and animators went out of their way to give these ragdolls, these animated ragdolls, as much realistic ragdoll-like movement as possible. They went into detail, absolute minuscule detail, to ensure that Raggedy Ann and Andy would look as realistically as doll as possible. Because the more they look like they are not human or humanized or even, funny and quirky cartoon characters, the more unsettling they are to look at. And since they are so well animated, they are unsettling all the time. That's not just the animation. I have never seen such a fundamentally unappealing character design. Because again, they wanted to make the dolls looking as much as possible similar to their real-life counterpart. You don't do that! Have you seen how real dolls look like?
Yeah.
Imagine those dolls animated without any proper filter to make them more visually appealing in a visual medium like animation. You get uncanny valley effects off the wazoo.
Oh gosh.
And that's just the peak of the iceberg, because after these characters, then there are all of the other characters.
Oh yeah, all these other characters that you just wish were not a part of the movie at all.
Hey, let's have a couple of dancing, black-haired Shirley Temple, naked wooden dolls served as a transition in between songs with rotating, rolling eyes. That's not creepy.
No, that's not creepy at all. That's not nightmare fuel inducing, dude.
Oh, and what about that caterpillar, multiple-armed jester doll?
Oh gosh.
That's not creepy.
Please don't remind me of him.
That's not absolutely horrifying. Imagine being a child in the 70s watching this film. You would probably be put asleep in the first 5 minutes, to be fair.
Yes.
Because the pacing is horrifying just as much as the animation.
Or if you were a child that was able to, to get past that without falling asleep, then congratulations, you are scarred for life.
I could only imagine that the fans of the doll, the real-life doll, would be interested in watching a proper adaptation of their favorite toy growing up.
Yeah.
But then they see this film, and they realize, wait, I'm watching the film adaptation of a doll. Not a story, not an adaptation of a story about the doll, just an adaptation of the doll. And this is what they came up with? The Taffy Pit? Really? Let's talk about the Taffy Pit, shall we?
Because...
Let's jump, because that is the most egregious moment in the entire film.
Oh gosh, and that actually explains a lot of how I feel, and especially of how critics felt about the movie in general.
Yeah, they must have felt very weird about it.
Let's put it this way, as soon as you see the Taffy monster, the greed, as he calls himself.
I would have called him the gluttony, but, people confuse greed with gluttony all the time.
Yeah, and...
They are surprisingly easy to confuse.
Okay, so...
Am I right, Persona 5?
Okay, so let me put it this way, just so... I'm going to be combining how Madhog described it, as well as me. Think of Conker's Bad Fur Day, the Great Mighty Pooh.
I am the Great Mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my candy
at you.
Because it's the Taffy monster.
Yeah, so
but,
when we were watching the movie, both me and him had the same idea and sang the song at the same time.
Yes, could you not?
That was magical in itself, but then came the rest of the animation afterwards.
And
so
this kind of exemplifies all the problems I have with this animation, but please do go on.
Yes, so think of the Great Mighty Pooh. If he was actually animated as he should, as well as being more stretchy.
And fluid. This gives a new meaning to fluid animation.
How is it possible that a big pile of shit can look way more appealing than what this is?
I'll tell you why, because that said big pile of shit was a pretty unmoving big pile of shit. It was just a solid piece of something, and it would throw shit at you, as it were. But, ironically, because it was poorly animated, because it was a video game, a 3D game from 1997...
It was in the Nintendo 64 era,
Yes,
so...
that's even not the best console at the time, from a graphical standpoint. So, because of that, it looked passable. But ironically, with the Greedy... He is so well animated, so profoundly fluid in his motion. There isn't a single scene in which he stands still or firm. He is constantly moving and shape-shifting and reforming and eating.
And flowing even.
Flowing! And it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And since it is so well animated and moving all the time and fluid like that, it looks 10 times more disgusting than it would have if he was just a still pile of shit. How do you do that? How do you spend so much effort and quality in your animation to make a whole sequence look as fundamentally regurgitatingly unappealing, vomit-inducing also? That is the most unwatchable sequence of any animation I've ever seen.
I mean, I remember you at that point, you were saying this is nightmare fuel. For me, it was more vomit fuel than anything.
Also that.
Because
I was legitimately feeling sick looking at this.
I was feeling queasy the entire time, and I was worried that I had to run to the bathroom.
This is the most unappealing, well-animated film I must have seen in a long time. I didn't think it was possible to have a film so well-made, competently made, be so fundamentally ugly. Ugly.
This actually segues to the reception of the film, I think. Because many critics apparently found the movie so hard to watch. Because not only did they say, like us, that the plot moved really slow and had no focus whatsoever, but it was a burden to even watch it at all, even with the musical numbers in place.
Especially with the musical numbers, I'd say.
And apparently they were even considered disturbing for children.
I wonder what. It's disturbing for adults, let me tell you.
Apparently there was also some adult humor subtext in Captain Contagious, whose mustache grows erect and performs pelvic thrusts when he first sees the character of Babette, which is the porcelain doll we talked about earlier.
Yes, and by the way, yes, that ship has a crew, which appears out of nowhere.
Yeah,
after the ship is liberated from the snow globe.
Where did they all come from?
I have no idea, I don't care. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers to you. Oh gosh, I just finished my drink. Well, but it was nice knowing me.
And the worst part is that they kind of recycled the animation for the greedy.
Yes.
Well, at least they recycled the character design, because later on we have yet another blob-looking character, this time from the depths of the sea, which I have no idea what it's supposed to be, but apparently is...
It has plant-like tendrils.
Maybe it's an amalgamation of algae, I don't know.
It must be, because the fact it also has one of those air hole things that look like you blow
Couldn't you
it.
animate a giant octopus? Couldn't you animate a kraken? No, it had to be this algae monster that's just lazy. It feels lazy at this point, even though it's, again, very well animated, because of everything else we've seen. And speaking of lazy, you know, when you have such a mesmerizingly good animation, full motion and whatnot, whenever you have those little scenes in which you reuse the frames very blatantly, with only seconds apart from each other,
yeah,
it gets noticeable.
Yes, it does. I believe the Camel song even also had reused animation.
Yeah, especially the Camel song.
Then again, with a budget of $4 million...
For 77, that's huge.
That's a huge...
For an animation project. That is, considering what everything else looked like. And I'll give this to this film.
Yeah.
There is no other film in the 1970s that looks quite like this one.
Very
for good reasons.
This is unique in itself.
Although, I will say, some of the character shading lines, they are a bit similar to Ralph Bakshi's Fritz the Cat.
Yeah.
But that's mostly because it is a more common style.
I mean, even at one point, you actually asked, where'd the actual artists go? Because as soon as we got to the pirate ship, there was some crudely drawn pirate-looking characters, close-ups.
It seems like this is the point in which it becomes more evident that the animators working on this never met.
And the budget was
running out.
Was stretched.
I think this budget is the most stretched I've ever seen.
Even by the standards of the 1970s.
I mean, you'd think there would be a moment in which they might have the characters standing still for a bit, not move so much, because nobody in real life moves that much, but there is never a moment in which they stand still. And since they have to be constant about this, and it's the only coherent element of the entire film, the fact that they have to move all the time, that gets, again, nauseating after a while.
Not only is everyone in the foreground moving, but everything in the background moves as well.
Everything moves, and again, if this were to be any other film, I would be praising it. But since this film looks like it's trying to make a nightmare-fueled dream sequence from Paprika by Satoshi Kon as child-friendly as possible, it does not deserve my sympathy.
No.
It seems like something out of Paprika, I have to say.
Oh. Yeah.
In conclusion.
In conclusion.
Oh, you want to know what the evil plan of King Cuckoo was?
Oh yeah, because apparently at one point, at first you think the Captain Contagious is the main villain of the plot because, you know, he kidnaps, let's say, the princess.
The French Babette.
Yeah, French Babette.
Because I just noticed it sounds like baguette.
Yes, Babette. Because she's a French porcelain doll that came
and
from
again,
France.
the only one who does not look creepy once she's animated. Yeah. But she does look creepy when she's a regular live-action porcelain doll. Because they all look creepy.
Basically, Captain Contagious kidnaps her, so you assume that, hey, he's the main villain.
No.
And then 40-50 minutes into the film, you get introduced to the actual main villain of the play.
King Cuckoo, which is the guy that laments he's so small, but he can only get big if he's laughing at others. So his evil plan for the end is to acquire the services of the giant algae monster to tickle everybody, and that would make him laugh so hard that he becomes like a huge world-engulfing blimp, essentially, to the point that the parrot, the captain's parrot, just flies straight inside of him, punctures it, and it explodes, and that explodes us back to reality, as it were. In other words, our main protagonists are useless, and the day was saved by a parrot.
Yes.
Which had a love song to it.
Yes,
Speaking of love songs, cheers, mate. Raggedy Ann and Andy are supposed to be brother and sister.
Yes.
Sister and brother. Siblings,
yes.
Right? So they have this weird song right when they step foot outside of their house.
Yeah, saying...
It sounded a bit like a love song.
Yeah, it sounded like a love song, and it also was basically them singing about how everything's so scary, but if we're together...
we can do anything!
And Raggedy Ann even also proclaims... Raggedy Andy, I should say.
The drunk one, mind you, like us.
Yeah, like us. Because I got them mixed up because I thought Raggedy Andy was the girl and never mind.
Okay.
So essentially Raggedy Andy basically then proclaims, and I love you so much, to Raggedy
I guess
Ann.
it's supposed to be platonic siblings
It's
love, but
supposed to be.
The song sounds a bit off. And it goes on forever, by the way. Nothing really happens during these songs. There are no psychedelic journeys. There is just a guy or a character or multiple characters standing or slightly walking to the side while singing. And that is the most boring sequence, the most boring musical sequence you can show off in a film. This is not a stage play. This is an animated feature. For crying out loud. Know your role.
This actually segues to a point I made multiple times in this film, because one of my researchers basically looked into fetishes of people and why psychologically that would...
all the fetishes that are known to man, they come from cartoons.
Yes.
Vor, cartoons.
Expansion, cartoons.
Cartoons. Oh, and furry?
Yes, cartoons.
Kind of are pioneered by cartoons to a big audience.
The reason I bring this up is because multiple times in the film, I could not help but bring up points in the film that could, go for someone's fetish, essentially.
The film is pretty much a patient zero when it comes to fetishes. I mean, you have a fetish about dolls, specifically Raggedy Ann dolls. There you go. This is the most naturalistic-looking animated Raggedy Ann doll you will ever get.
The cat end up saying one line that really freaked me out.
Oh yeah, that line actually made us laugh / cringe for several minutes.
Because
this happened during his second song with the parrot.
Because he was imprisoned by
the mutinous Babette.
So basically, the person he kidnapped basically kidnapped him in the end.
I was almost about to get my prize. I was about to pluck the flower from
paradise.
From paradise. I was about to pluck the flower from paradise. I was about to pluck the flower from paradise.
And then he sings a love song about the parrot, because why not?
I've noticed that dolls can actually eat
because they have taste buds, apparently.
What's there to say they don't have something else?
So...
I guess they have.
So yeah,
cheers, mate.
Cheers. That's really nice. So yeah, the other fetishes that I end up...
I finished my beer. I mean, the cider.
The other ones I pinpointed were expansion, namely the growth of a body part.
Oh, there is that aplenty.
Yes.
I don't get it, but it's a thing.
Yes, it's a thing. There's a lot of that. There's even tickling. That is also a fetish.
Oh, yes!
There's
And my god, that climax was all about that algae getting in people's grill. Tentacle pornography.
Yes, and I guess...
Say it. Just say it. Say it.
Oh, gosh. I mean, like I said, plushophilia, expansion of the buttocks,
Oh, that one.
tentacles, tickling.
What about the act of gorging yourself with food?
That is another thing, yes.
Yes, it is.
So, then again, this is the 70s we're talking about, so everything was a more innocent time, and also...
The 70s. Now you're thinking of the 60s.
Oh yes, the 60s were the innocent times. The 70s were the time where everyone was getting up into each other's grills,
Essentially.
Let's put it that way.
So, great family film, you guys. Go watch it right now. Gets a total recommendation. It's not like the most bizarre and depleting
Experience ever.
Yeah, it is. I've seen this film once before, but it did not have that much of an impact on me as it had now.
I must admit, my fiancée has watched this before
She
herself.
warned us about the Tuffy pit.
Yes, she did warn us about
And I
it.
knew he was coming, but I did not remember him to be this.
So, there's a lot to unpackage more than I thought when coming to this film. I mean, what type of film makes you want to say, like, this made me feel queasy? I mean, I respect the animators as well at the same time, but I also feel uncomfortable with the fact that...
I want to respect this film for what it gets done. It's pioneering new technology. It's pioneering new female animators in the business, which is also great, especially for the time. It is well animated. I mean, it might be the most well animated American animated film in the 70s in that regard, but it is so unwatchable. Oh!
It is so...
What did go wrong? What were they thinking?
If you want my take on the entire experience, everybody, I call this animation porn in the same vein as food porn.
It is porn for the animators.
Yes.
Not for the people watching, that is. Because
Yes.
from an audience perspective,
It's so disgusting.
It is-
so vile.
it is absolutely...
looking. If you were to watch this yourself, you would feel very like you would just want to lose any lunch you had before watching it.
I feel like my soul is trying to escape my body as we speak. I desperately needed to drink something.
Let's talk about the ending of the film at least.
Should we talk about the ending of the film?
Nothing is resolved other than...
I mean, they tell us it's resolved via song, but really, like I said before, it doesn't seem like it.
Because of lack of character focus and lack of
anything focused, really. Except the horrifying animation.
Yeah, so other than the animation, everything else suffered in its place. So essentially, people have to tell you everything's resolved now, and basically how they tell you it's resolved
Via song.
is via song and saying, "Hey, look, it's good to be home. The outside world's great and all, but it's
Well,
very
I
nice to
mean, after having a journey like that, I too would be happy to be back at home and never go out ever again for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Even though I would have to share my habitation with the awful caterpillar jester doll.
Yeah.
And the black-haired Shirley Temple's wooden dolls that roll their eyes like demon-possessed evils.
So Raggedy Ann is resolved apparently, even though there was nothing going into it.
Absolutely.
And then Raggedy Andy, what about his plot?
Who cares?
Who cares?
Bang! Wham! To the moon!
Everything about his whole thing about I'm not a girl's toy, I'm a big boy's
Gets
toy.
forgotten as soon as that original song is over.
And the whole...
And then he proceeds to be drunk for the rest of the film, apparently.
we have Babette basically deciding, I will stay here even though I wanted to go back to France.
For no reason whatsoever. She has no reason to have changed her mind. Oh, and of course, now she's dating Pirate Captain Contagious or whatever his name is.
Yes.
Yes, because
Because
Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Yay!
Hey, so essentially,
What's the fun in making sense, am I right?
we would ask video game developers, what were you smoking at the time of making this game? I
Well-
would dread to ask what they had at all when they, when they made this movie conceptually.
You heard that, folks? That was the ambulance from the asylum that's come to take us away.
Oh yeah.
They're coming to take me away, haha, hee ho ho, etc. This is visual cocaine. I think this is the best way to describe it.
I'm still going my animation porn and cocaine with you.
It's a cocaine and sex party made into an animation film for families.
Yes, for children.
Imagine trying to sell RoboCop as a children's franchise, which they did in the 80s with the toy lines and all that. But you get the idea. Fun fact! Before the 80s,
Yes.
you could not make films or animations or TV programs for the specific purpose of selling toys or promoting products and all that. You could have sponsors, but one thing you could not do is making something for the specific purpose of selling a toy. They got away with making this in the 70s because it's an adaptation. I guess. There has to be some loophole. It's clearly selling to you the doll.
Yes.
And the record label. You know what? I think I'm done.
I'm done. We talked about this for 1 hour and 10 minutes now, so...
Not counting all the editing I will be doing.
Yes.
Again, I want to stress that I want to respect the existence of this film. I want to like the animation because it is so fluid, man.
I want to appreciate the work that went into it, but
I think I might have enjoyed this film far more if the animation was more limited and less horrifying.
I mean, it's an experience in itself, but it's at your own risk of losing your lunch and your sanity.
I mean, I guess it's a perfect film to summarize the 1970s, philosophically speaking. I would also change all the music, all the soundtrack. I would have it made by Iron Butterfly and no one else. Raggedy Ann and Andy, it's a musical adventure. In a gada da vida, Andy, don't you know that your girl's toys, etc.
Yeah, so, like I said, I'm done with this. I'm actually going to genuinely stop talking about this now because I want to live on with my life.
Yes, me too.
I mean, after the movie was done, I actually went straight out of the room, went over to my future wife, and said, I love you.
I did the same.
I kicked you out of the room for that.
You actually did not. And that implies something. Cue in the Raggedy Ann and Andy love song. Oh God! I am nearly not drunk enough. I need more liquor. In the meantime, I'll see you off, everybody. Thanks for listening to this
impromptu
train-wrecky review of an equally train-wrecky film from 1977. I shall bid you goodbye, and see you later.
Yes, take care, everyone. Have a good day or night, wherever you are.
In a gata da vida, honey. Don't you know that I'll always be true? Raggedy Ann and Andy, a liquor drinking adventure.
Oh, how do you do? Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Wolf. Alexander Graham Wolf. I am an inefficiency expert, and my next client, although he doesn't know it yet, will be good old Santa Claus. Yes, good old Santa Claus himself. So he's just going to have to shape up, put Christmas on a paying basis for good old Santa and his new partner, namely myself.
Hey there, everyone. On behalf of Team Yume, I wish you the merriest of Merry Christmases in September.
Don't tell me we're doing this thing where basically now, because of all the shops are putting up all their Christmas products, we're going to start by, reviewing Christmas stuff early just to spite them.
Hey, it is never too early, and by the same logic too late, to buy into the soulless consumerism surrounding holidays. We can have Halloween stuff available on August and Christmas-related paraphernalia available on September. What is
why not?
physically preventing us to review a Christmas special from 1978 in September.
The fact it's not Christmas?
Christmas is an illusion created by the capitalist society to make us buy toys and make money off of our hard-earned cash, to feed into the soulless consumerist machine surrounding the conspiracy of holidays that has been plaguing humanity ever since somebody learned how to exploit the innocence of childhood. And on that note...
that was an opinion. On that note...
Welcome back everybody to Dramatis Sermo, and last time we were into this particular podcasting context, we tackled a certain timeless musical classic.
Yeah, that required drinks afterwards.
Yes, we reviewed Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure, and its soundtrack, and its disturbing animation, and its dubious aesthetic, and everything that was wrong with it. We laid it bare on our most recent episode prior to this one. I do like to think we did a banged up job in pretty much dissecting and thoroughly discussing this film in every possible aspect. We even acknowledged and mentioned all the people who worked on it, all the animators, the assistant animators, the director, the former director who passed away.
How much money it made and what type of techniques they had to employ.
Yes. I think we also mentioned the name of the record labels.
Yep, we definitely did. It was...
So there's that. But the one thing we did not discuss was surprisingly, the origins of the actual doll itself, Raggedy Ann, and by extension, Raggedy Andy. We did not discuss at all where does she come from, or indeed anything about her legacy. We were too focused in decimating that one single misguided work of art, that passion project that just made my heart ache to dismember so violently. But still, if there is one thing that I enjoy more than talking about animation, is talking about animation and, by extension, characters related to animation with a long, rich and interesting history and legacy to them. So, here we are, once again talking about Raggedy Ann, perhaps against our better judgment, but we'll see. Mostly because my heart desired to redeem these characters from one disreputable
piece of media. I mean, it was just a mess, that film, but the dolls themselves do have a long history.
Raggedy Ann as a character was created by American writer Johnny Gruelle in 1915. To be specific, the actual rag doll of Ann was created on September the 7th of 1915. And then it was released to the public along with the book of the same name, the 1918's book Raggedy Ann Stories. So, at the time, actually releasing a book with a doll attached to it was considered a brilliant marketing move, and it paid off. Later on in 1920, we also had the spin-off Raggedy Andy Stories, which introduced the character of Andy and his very fun and family-friendly drunken sailor adventures fighting around the world. I would love to see a gritty remake of Raggedy Ann and Andy, whereas Raggedy Andy is played by Russell Crowe.
I could totally see that, and Raggedy Andy would say to the children, "Are you not entertained?"
Fighting around the world, Raggedy Andy punches cancer. Of course, by that logic, Raggedy Ann should be played by Charlize Theron, but only if she actually kills people on screen.
Oh gosh. Yeah, in all seriousness.
Getting back to the origins of the character and her adventure book, this actually makes me feel even more furious about the musical adventure that we dissected, because they actually had the stories to get inspiration from, to make something good out of it. And yet, we ended up with the great mighty taffy monster.
Oh boy,
and everything in between and around.
Which was a whole lot of nothing.
Right, so this happened in 1977. 1 year after that, Chuck Jones, the great Chuck Jones, the one and only Chuck Jones, one of the key, most prominent and important figures in animation's history, Chuck Jones, that is.
Yeah.
He released the first of 2 animated specials starring the titular dolls. Now, the second one was from 79, and it is an Halloween special, and I do believe we shall cover that this October, because I say so.
It makes sense.
I mean, but for now, we are covering the Christmas special by the title of The Great Santa Claus Caper in September.
That makes sense, right, guys? I mean, it's either the way that it's supposed to be done, where we review the Halloween special first, then the Christmas, which means we'll be doing it in reverse, or we just do it in chronological order of doing the Christmas special first, and then the Halloween special afterwards.
I mean, what the heck? Let's celebrate Easter the 4th of July.
Why not? I mean, no one's doing anything important that day.
Yes, that's why I said it.
I'm kidding.
It most certainly does not concern us, seeing as we are European, but...
Well, yeah, true.
Anyway, so Raggedy Ann and Andy in The Great Santa Claus Caper. For a TV production, this is quite star-studded, I have to say. The voice of Anne in this is the one inimitable June Foray.
June Foray?
Yes, she's a legendary voice actress who pretty much voiced all the characters you've ever grew up with, ever since the old Looney Tunes era.
Yeah.
And she passed away this year. To give you an example, she voiced Granny, as in the character Granny. She was Rocky in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Okay.
And about 100,000 more characters, including Raggedy Ann, in this special.
I didn't actually research the voice actors, but I actually recognized only 2 of them just because of their voices sounded similar to other characters I heard from other animations. One from a movie made by Chuck Jones called The Phantom Tollbooth.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was a voice from a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, but we'll get to that.
Since we are already talking about voice actors, the bad guy in this short is voiced by legendary actor Les Tremayne.
He is the voice I recognize instantly because
It is
I've only
quite a very recognizable voice, I say so myself.
because he was the guy in the Phantom Toll booth that played as the humbug.
Bah humbug. You know,
No,
at some point, we will review that film as well. I am yet to watch it as we speak. We are already covering the major animated enterprises of the 1970s, so we might as well go through with it. Which means we will have to watch Fritz the Cat as well at some point, because it's kind of an important, somewhat important watch for the time period.
Yeah, it kinda is.
We might as well watch all the films by Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's freaking Ralph Bakshi, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's see. Raggedy Andy. He was voiced by
Dos Butler.
His voice reminded me of Elroy Jetson. So if I'm wrong, I'll be surprised.
Okay, so he was Terrible Trivium in the Phantom Toll booth.
Oh, yeah. Probably one of the more creepy and coolest designed characters.
You will love this. You will love to know he was also Snagglepuss.
Exit stage left. Oh, boy.
Yep.
He probably voice acted in a lot of Chuck Jones's work then, by the sounds of it.
He was Mr. Jinx from Pixie and Dixie. Oh, he was Peter Perfect from the Wacky Races.
Ooh. So he did have some range then.
Indeed. You know, all voice actors should have some range.
Yeah, but you get some voice actors who only have
Well, nowadays, most voice actors tend to be too recognizable for their own good.
That's true.
Anyway, he was also Baba Louie from Quick Draw McGraw. Oh, look! He was Barney Rubble from the Flintstones. So this is what I mean when I said that this short has a star-studded cast. We have the likes of June Foray, which is possibly the most prolific voice actress who ever lived, even more than Mel Blanc, in fact.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, Les Tremayne, celebrated actor before even becoming a voice actor, and then Charles Dawson Butler, which we just acknowledged. He has quite a resume. All of these people have quite a resume. He was the Atom Ant. Yep, I remember it quite clearly.
Me as well, actually. I remember it quite clearly as well. But,
he was Yogi Bear.
Hey, boo-boo.
Well, yes, it sounds a bit like Barney, doesn't it? Although, to be honest, the early version of Barney had a slightly more nasal inflection to it.
Right.
It was the same voice actor, but then he changed his pitch.
Right.
He was Wally Gator. He was Elroy Jetson. I just found it.
Yeah, I knew it.
Okay.
I feel vindicated for that.
Right, so before we proceed in summarizing the happenings of this short, I would like to talk about the aesthetic presentation of it, because if you recall, last time I made this big rant about what doesn't work in the aesthetic and animation style of Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure. Specifically, the character designs tend to be too realistic and creepily close to their dull counterparts, and the overly naturalistic and detailed animation only makes them look much more creepy.
Yeah, but
I would have preferred to watch a version of this film with a bit more limited animation that would complement a more cartoony, properly cartoon-like character design. I also mentioned about the Chuck Jones specials, and this immediately provides a valuable example of what I was talking about, because this TV special, in spite of it being a TV special, which means a lower budget, a TV format as opposed to a widescreen, a limited animation style, this short looks so much more appealing than the film could ever hope to be, in my opinion.
It seems a lot more appealing in general, I feel, too, because of the fact that it doesn't look weird to look at.
I mean, the two main characters look really nice and cute. They have a good design that's easy to the eye, and it's complemented by the animation style that brings in the forefront their cartoon nature. They do feel like proper cartoon characters existing in a cartoon universe, as opposed to realistic dolls creepily invading an animated feature.
Yeah.
So yes, the animation in here, it's much more limited, but much more appealing and charming to look at. And that alone makes this special superior to the previous year's film.
Then again, I don't expect anything less from a Chuck Jones animated
No,
production.
I mean, Chuck Jones is not the master of the universe of animation for nothing.
No.
He's been honing his craft for decades now, and he's always had a good, recognizable, charming style to his characters, bringing them to life through his own craft.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If nothing else, this special is very charming because of that.
Yeah, it's very charming for that, but it's also... I find it quite charming just because of the period it was made in, essentially. Just because of the writing.
This is definitely a product of its time when it comes to writing for children's programming on television.
Especially in the 70s, you said it was?
It's 1978, yes.
Yeah, it was...
So yes, we have a lot of characters appearing on screen, explaining to the audience, literally breaking the fourth wall, to explain to the audience who they are and what they're doing while they're about to doing what they're doing.
That's actually literally how it opens as well.
Yes.
You have Alexander the G. Wolf, basically.
Alexander Graham Wolf.
He basically looks to the audience going like, oh, you're probably wondering who I am. Well, I'm this guy.
Yes, I shall introduce myself. I am Alexander Graham Wolf.
And I am going to tell you what I'll be doing this entire...
Yes, I'm going to visit my newest partner, Santa Claus, and he calls him Santa Claus.
Yeah, he needs to join up with Jack Skellington for people who can't say his name correctly.
So, the film opens up properly in the snowy post-apocalyptic wastelands of...
of the North Pole.
Okay, it is actually the North Pole. It's not a winter holocaust. That would be something you would expect from the Lorax TV special, which Chuck Jones also made.
It seems to me that all the specials I've seen involving Chuck Jones always has characters that basically seems to either verbally or with an expression of the character's face seems to acknowledge the audience in some way. It seems to be a common thread.
Well, in the Dr. Seuss TV specials, that makes sense given the writing that Chuck Jones is transliterating to screen.
It's just the only reason I bring this up because I watched a small scene of The White Seal by Chuck Jones as well, and it has this one moment where the seal mother looks to the audience with one expression for one frame of animation, like as if, hey, I knew this was going to happen.
Yes, well, isn't that a trademark in Chuck Jones productions and short films?
Yeah, I did wonder
it is something that he definitely brought with him from his days working under Leon Scherzinger's animation studios.
Yeah, I did wonder
the
if that was...
Terrace from Warner Bros.
Yeah,
he's always been doing that. You always have characters that acknowledge the fictitious nature of the film by winking at the audience, sometimes literally, but that's what pretty much all animators and all cartoonists were doing at the time. Well, it's never to this extent. This is just a plain, childish, juvenile writing for lousy TV specials of the time. Hey kids, we know you're stupid, so we're going to tell you what the plot of this is before it actually happens.
I'm gonna tell you what I'll be doing.
Yes, I shall take my trademarked gloop stick to encase all the toys of Santa, and I'm going to sell them to the kids.
Madhog is not joking. That is literally the plot that he just tells you.
Yes.
That he's the antagonist, he's gonna be doing this. with gloopstick.
It's time to corporate hostile takeover of Santa's workshop. Yes, indeed. I am a representation of late-stage capitalism. Pretty much.
And also the whole fact that apparently he wants to improve Christmas, apparently.
Yes, with capitalism. It's the classic Christmas tale of greedy corporate capitalism trying to ruin the holidays for the children. You know, along with the trope of don't be a Grinch, this is perhaps the most common subject for a Christmas special. A villain who wants to ruin Christmas by injecting it with corrupted, soulless, consumerist mentality to make a buck, and then you have the main characters who are the embodiment of the innocence and joyful nature of what the holiday is supposed to be all about, and they try to stop him. And that's exactly what happens in here. But the way it happens, the way the plot is set in motion, is the most delirious thing about it. Because we explain how all the characters tend to literally talk to the audience and explain what's going on and what's going to happen. Well, as Alexander Graham Wolf, which is actually an inefficiency expert. No, seriously, he calls himself an inefficiency expert. He has it on his greeting card.
Yeah, on his business card.
Which he actually shows us, to the audience that is, his business card. So he explains his plan to the audience, as I said, and one of the reindeers, the Santa's reindeers, Comet,
I believe. Yeah,
yes,
Comet.
just happens to hear him, and she has her own monologue to the audience. Oh no, he needs to be stopped.
He's going to ruin Christmas for everybody.
Yes.
But I need someone who could help. But I need someone that's light and cannot feel the cold.
Who could it possibly be who's both light and can't feel the cold?
Oh, I know! We'll get Raggedy Ann and Andy!
And then the title card explodes in our face, and you see the two main characters actually hugging each other in fear because they know they're going to star in this film. What was up with that title card?
I have no idea.
They're just hugging each other, afraid of facing the soulless machine of capitalism, I guess.
Oh no, we're going to be facing the soulless capitalism in order to help soulless capitalism.
Yes, that's always a moral that's rendered moot by the very obvious origins of the film itself. That's kind of a recurring problem with those Christmas specials. They lecture us about the true meaning of Christmas and capitalism is bad, and then they pretty much want you to buy the toys attached to the Christmas special.
Yay, we saved Christmas and all the toys! Now we can sell them to you!
Well, in fairness to this cartoon, they do not condemn the act of getting toys for Christmas, because that would be hypocritical.
Yes.
They condemn the idea of what the villain is doing, the very specific act the villain is doing for his own personal gain and profit, and for a somewhat misguided idea of what getting presents or toys really is supposed to mean to the child. Because the child wants to play with the toys. They do not want them encased forever into an unbreakable gloop stick.
Gloop stick glass, apparently.
Gloop stick glass, but we'll get to that. Comet gets to Raggedy Ann and Andy, which are the only two who can save Christmas because they have those very two specific qualities of being light and not freezing to death when exposed to cold, which honestly I think it applies for many more things than just dolls.
There's cold-blooded lizards, for example.
Couldn't you get Wally Gator for this job? I mean... It's not too heavy, is it?
Could have went for Yogi Bear and his, surely he had that ship by now, flying around with all his other Hanna-Barbera friends, stopping whatever pollution or...
yes, it's the 70s.
Stuff that was happening
It is
at the
the
time.
bloody 70s, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Comet pretty much hurtles inside Anne and Andy's home and pretty much kidnaps them.
Yeah, kidnaps them casually, my bad.
Yes. We're gonna save Christmas, you guys!
No time to explain! We gotta save Christmas!
Christmas abduction! Oh, and by the way, they have a dog, inexplicably, which is also a ragdoll. A ragdoll dog, a ragdoll doll.
A ragdog doll.
It's a puppy.
Yes.
And his name
puppy.
is Raggedy Arthur. I don't even know if it's an original character, Do Not Steal, or if it's from the books. It might as well be from the books, but I would not know since I have not read them.
It wouldn't surprise me if this was Chuck Jones' creation, just to add a...
It does look like an OC Do Not Steal. So Comet, after kidnapping the two unwilling doll heroes, they have a pointless discussion about, hey, I didn't know reindeers could fly. Well, I didn't know dolls could talk. Hold on, pause, stop the press.
Yeah.
Let's see if I get this straight. Comet, you knew of the existence of Raggedy Ann and Andy. That's why you came to get them to save Christmas. And yet, you are surprised that they can talk?
I mean, unless she was making a point that, hey, usually dolls don't talk, but then it's like, hey, but you're the only two dolls that can talk, but that would make sense, considering.
It might be a quip. A whip made at their expenses because they commented on the fact that they are surprised that the reindeer can fly, even though Santa Claus is canonically accepted in this universe. So really, if you get down to it, both sides were pretty much in the wrong from the start, and this was a waste of time to pad out for time.
Yes,
which was wasted. Wasted time, pad out for time.
Padded time for wastedness.
This Christmas special might have a bit of a padding problem, a bit of a pacing problem, especially when you get to Alexander G. Wolf setting up his gloopstick machine, which he calls the gloopsticizer, or something along those lines.
And that's the moment where Chuck Jones unleashes all the sound effects that he could ever muster from his library.
Yes, well, the only thing that was missing is the classic Rube Goldberg theme. Love it. But anyway, so that scene in between setting up the machine, which takes a few seconds, on-screen seconds, and also repeating the same animation about 3 times to showcase how the gloopsticizer, if I'm even getting the name right, grabs the toys, individually grabs the toys, that is, puts them inside of itself, and produces them along with a gloopsticky case around them.
Plastic glass or unbreakable
plexiglass
around it, essentially, which looks very smooth.
Yes, I believe that is the intended material to reference here.
And you can tell he's heartless because he does it to Christmas trees as well.
But the best part is that he's doing all of this while Santa Claus is sleeping in his bed along with all of his reindeers. All of his reindeers and his elves are sleeping with Santa in his huge bed, which has me asking questions, and that's never a good thing.
No, it's not, especially when there's no Mrs. Claus inside.
So anyway, while everybody is sleeping, Alexander G. Wolf just quietly takes over Santa's production facility.
I think you need to put quotation marks next to the quietly.
I mean, okay, he speaks to himself and the machine does a lot of noise, but Santa does not wake up for anything.
Okay, everyone, it's time to go to sleep before work.
I would like to point out that I do really enjoy Les Tremaine's performance as Alexander G. Wolf.
I always liked his performances.
He clearly has all the charm and class of a Wile E. Coyote in a Bugs Bunny cartoon, which is the one Wile E. Coyote that could actually talk and be very pretentious about it. And the character is pretty much a Wile E. Coyote retraced design, as it were, which makes sense.
Especially if it's from a Chuck Jones Productions, and you kind of do see that often. He just reuses character designs or aspects,
It's a recognizable style.
Next to, as my fiance would put it, the neck separator for just showing, head movement alone without moving the body.
It's a great technique to save money and time on animation that Hanna-Barbera perfected. You separate the head with a cravat or a tie, as it were, and then you only animate the head. The line separating the head from the rest of the body does not show. The animation displayed in this special is a bit more classy and a bit more well-rounded.
Oh yeah.
There is a lot more movement and a lot more motions, and none of those motions feel wasted.
Nor do
like Raggedy Ann and Andy Musical Adventure.
Nor do they feel unnecessary like a musical adventure.
Yep. Cheers. Oh wait, we don't have liqueur.
Clink.
Okay, so
we've just finished saying that Alexander just glooped the toys.
Yes, pretty much glooped the toys with his
gloop stickerizers.
Or something. You know what? I'll just call it the roboticizer for toys. He might as well be Robotnik or Eggman, roboticizing little toys instead of critters. Either way, he's ruining something for someone.
Yeah.
Christmas, the lives of millions. Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Oh boy. So, our intrepid and fearless duo arrive at the scene, and Comet just stays behind because plot.
Yeah, because Comet decides, I'll leave you two to it because...
No, actually, they decide that she should stay back because you're not a main character. Get back. Go away. And this is the last time we actually see her. Technically, we see her silhouette at the end rejoining the rest of the reindeer herd. But otherwise, this is the last time we ever see her in this special.
Yeah, in full form, essentially.
Yes. So, instead of doing the sensible thing and waking up Santa Claus, no, they decided they had to stop the wolf.
Yeah,
on
I
their
believe
own.
Raggedy Ann was the one who basically went like, "Oh no, we shouldn't disturb Santa. He needs his sleep." And Andy's all like, "Yeah, you're right. We gotta fix this ourselves. I'm a boy. I can fix anything.
I am no girl's toy."
I'm no girl's toy. I can do anything.
Fighting around the world. Okay,
Fighting around the world. I'm no girl's toy.
I have to say, for once in his life, Andy is actually useful because he saves the day at the end.
Yes, he does.
Unlike the film, where he did not do anything at all.
Well, neither did Anne, let's put it that way.
Yeah, nobody did anything at all aside from the parrot. The damn parrot.
Yeah, the damn parrot that had a love song written for him.
That is another podcast. It's done. Dusted.
Yes.
Let's leave it there where
yes,
it is.
we will.
Anyway.
And what's the first thing they do?
Well, they get spotted immediately.
I don't think it's spotted immediately. They just go up to him and go like, "Hey, what you doing?"
Okay, so at this point in time, I was expecting cartoon shenanigans to ensue. The main character sneaking in, playing tricks to the bad guy, attempting to stop him, and all of that. Before the inevitable moment in which the bad guy realizes the errors of his ways, which also happens here. But before we get there, we have something completely different that really took me by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, this is the 70s after all, so they just go up to talk to the bad guy.
Well, it's not just that they went to talk to the bad guy, it's also the fact that the bad guy was clearly expecting them, and he was clearly prepared for them, as you see at the console panel of his bloody gloop synthesizer machine He also has an Andy and Ann and Arthur option available for those gloop-sticking business. Now, the best part of this is that during this entire scene, Alexander is trying to lure them to the dark side of holiday capitalism.
Yeah, I remember that. He was trying to convince them his way was the best way.
They will have unbreakable toys.
This is the logic he's going with, folks. He's basically, just to save a lot of time, they ask him what he's doing and why he's doing it, and he's all like, I'm basically helping the children, because what happens to toys after Christmas? They get broken, or they have wear and tear and all that. And it's like, exactly!
Exactly!
So what's the best way to help with this matter but to make it so that toys can never be broken ever again?
And so...
I'm sorry, I just love his voice. I mean, I grew up rewatching The Phantom Toll Booth constantly in my youth, so his voice kind of stuck with me as the humbug, so I kind of try and practiced it for years.
I can tell your interesting and polite voice definitely comes from a very specific source. If it's not Les Tremaine, it's Patrick Stewart. But anyway, so the gist of it is that the big bad wolf, and yes, by the way, he literally is the big bad wolf. He is established to be the same big bad wolf who had a dealing with the Three Pigs and also Little Red Riding Hood.
That means he ate someone's grandma at some point.
I love the idea that all those classic Grimm fairy tales are included in the Raggedy Ann and Andy cinematic universe.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see the origin films.
Origin films of Alexander Big Bad Wolf.
And then the crooked man from the nursery rhyme shows up. I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative.
But yes, he is called the Big Bad Wolf. He claims to be doing good, you know.
I mean, he's clearly doing evil, and he knows it. He even explains that he only knew how to be bad. But his logic is that by encasing the toys in his unbreakable gloop stick, they will never be broken. Shall never be broken. Also, since he has patented all gloopstick products around the world, it means he will make the parents of the children pay for the toys, and he'll make a buck in the process. Like I said, greedy late-stage capitalism, ruining small businesses.
Small Santa businesses, might we add.
Yes, the metaphor still stands, obviously.
Well, yeah.
So, Raggedy Ann and Andy are not too happy about that. Oh, and by the way, I want to acknowledge something that really made me a bit bewildered. Raggedy Ann... Boy, did I say that weirdly. Raggedy Ann is a doll, right?
Yes.
When Alexander G. Wolf asks her what kind of toy would she like, she says she wants a doll.
Yeah, even though she is a doll.
A doll plays with a doll? There is something profoundly wrong with that?
I mean, I like this as well. Despite the fact Comet told them, hey, it's the Big Bad Wolf, they're still, humoring him to show off his machine and what his gloop stick can do.
This is my evil machine, but since I have this voice, you are compelled to not think I'm evil.
So, yeah, Raggedy Ann gets showed how the machine works, how the doll basically gets encased in gloop stick.
And it's awful. Just awful.
What's the point of having a doll if you can't touch it?
Show me where the Batman touched you using this doll.
Show me where Raggedy Ann touched you, where using this Raggedy Ann doll.
So, the doll that Raggedy Ann is playing with actually sues her for violation of basic doll rights. Yes. So, she's traumatized. She lived in slavery.
Okay, so back on track. This is funny to me because despite the fact Andy knows what this machine does now, he still goes like, hey, it seems like an improvement to me for the doll.
And then he wants his own toys, and they all get encased, and he's all like, what's the point in having toys if you cannot touch them? Saying the exact same thing.
I know, and it's like...
Reiterating the exact same point, and just made a moment ago. You
It's like
dumb nut.
It's like he expected the machine to be different. And by the way, because there's a 70s animation and he's a boy, of course he wants way more toys than the girl does. Yes.
Once again, Comet, you couldn't pick up anyone else to save Christmas? I don't know, it's the 70s. You could have had, like Devar said, the Yogi Bears crew.
The Globetrotters.
You could have had the Globetrotters. I think the Kiss might have been available.
Dolly Osmond is light on his feet.
How about the cast from Gilligan's Island?
Sure, they're in space right now, but...
Fonzie. Fonzie saves Christmas.
Yeah, Fonzie could have time traveled there.
He
At least.
does travel to space in the 80s.
Yes.
So, yes, that is a timely reference.
Yeah, so that way Fonzie could have met up with Gilligan on Gilligan's planet.
Fritz the Cat? Oh, wait, no, that would be a very different special, full of incest and sex, and not really good for children.
Yeah, no, and Raggedy Ann would be made into a different toy. Oh gosh, no,
Okay,
get off this.
Fritz the Cat is a discussion for another time. Let's
Yes.
go back to the more family-friendly and definitely advertiser-friendly vibe of this Christmas special. You know what? Gloopstick is bad, and by extension, the big bad wolf is bad. And so, said wolf pretty much traps their dog, Arthur, which is still there.
To make a point.
He
and-
encased him in gloopstick, except for his head.
Which seems a bit cruel in its own right.
Well, at least he does not die of asphyxiation, because dolls can breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, they cannot freeze to death, but they can breathe.
Oh
Okay.
boy. So,
At this point, Raggedy Ann tries to run away from the creepy guy and hiding behind the Christmas trees, and G. Wolf is basically stalking her.
yeah, but before that, he actually did try to do the same to Raggedy Andy, and he thinks
Oh, yes.
he's got him, essentially. And then he decides to chase after Anne because, you know, she
Yes.
ran off, like you said.
Yes, like a character voiced by Mark Hamill would do.
No, my dear, come back here.
Andy manages to avoid the gloopstification, as it were, by escaping the machine he just was hanging.
In the inside of the funnel of.
He gets out of it. He just finds the button for the Christmas tree. He presses the button, and the machine just happens to grab the one Christmas tree Alexander Wolf happened to come out of in his pursuit of Anne. So that's
Yeah.
convenient.
Extremely convenient, but it works all the same.
So the big claw grabs Alexander and drags him inside the gloopsticizer, the roboticizer for toys.
Yes.
And he comes out of it in the shape of an encased Christmas tree with his head outside, and he immediately bursts down in tears while the two dolls pretty much roll to the floor in laughter.
Yeah, which seems a bit cruel for the good guys that I think
Well,
about
you
it.
know, he tried to end them, essentially.
Yeah, so it's not like he didn't have it coming, but...
But he never saw it coming.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, he was crying his eyes out, going like,
I hated being bad, but I only knew how to be bad. Now I'm going to be trapped here forever. I'm not a good Christmas tree. A Christmas tree?
a Christmas tree.
A Christmas quee? A bloody tree.
Yes.
I'm not a good tree.
I only knew how to be a bad wolf.
Okay, he also mentioned the fact that the gloop stick is supposed to be unbreakable. Except it is breakable.
Yes, it's conveniently breakable by one secret special weapon.
And what would that secret special weapon be?
Love.
It's the power of love.
What were you expecting from the 70s, folks?
Okay. Well, the 70s and Care Bears in general. Speaking of which, now there is that scene. So after they free Arthur from his gloop sticky prison, using the power of I love you so much and I hug you and squeeze you and dress you to look pretty, minus the last part, they realize that, hey, you know what we should do? We should do what Peter Pan did to make Tinkerbell feel better. We should talk to the audience and ask them to use their own love to free all the toys and save Christmas. So several years before Care Bears 2, the one with dark heart, that is, Raggedy Ann and Andy are pulling off a Care Bears. That is amazing.
I mean, I'm not surprised considering the period it was written in, personally.
But again, that is something that I've always associated with the Care Bears. And now I see Raggedy Ann and Andy, of all people, doing it in 1978.
Expect the unexpected in time
I guess. I mean, wow. Raggedy Ann asks the people at home, the children watching,
do you want your toys to be covered in this horrible gloop stick?
and then everybody yells no, and even the disembodied voice, the disembodied very adult sounding voices, which are supposed to be representative of the audience, they all say no and yell it to the heavens, and that frees the toys.
No! Even Darth Vader got involved. No!
Yes, Star Wars only came out the year prior to this. Oh boy. Okay, so and then there is the second question that Raggedy Ann asks.
And everyone says yes!
This actually looks weird if you get to actually watch it. Because it's not just that Raggedy Ann is making everyone yell the obvious predetermined answer. It's the fact that when she does yell it along with everyone else, it almost sounds like the Klingon war cry. I can only describe it like that. Yeah!
Yes!
Yes! Even the body language, the erratic movement of her body as she yells that, suggests something is not quite right.
There's never been anything quite right about Raggedy Ann.
It is so out there. Just the entire concept of interrupting the story of the special to literally Deus Ex Machina this resolution with the help of the audience. And then, of course, after all that, the wolf has a face turn.
Do you think that Alexander can change from being a big bad wolf to big good wolf?
Yes!
It's me thinking, Raggedy Ann, no, you can't just say big good wolf. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
When all of this was happening, I was just thinking to myself, okay, so what if some of the children watching this actually did not agree with you? Are you speaking for them as well? What if they did not want to forgive the wolf? Just because he has a sudden babyface turn, you're telling the audience that they are supposed to cheer for him? What do you think you are, WWE?
WWF at the time.
I think even WWF at the time. But anyway, so that was a scene that happened, and of course, with the power of a predetermined answer, the wolf is liberated from his gloop sticky prison and is very, very glad. And I'll be good from now on. I'm so glad to have a second chance at goodness.
Yes, I'm glad to have a chance to be a good wolf.
But quick, we must go away before Santa wakes up.
They're sneaking out, actually, as well. What about that? Excuse me, I'll have to press this button right here.
The self-destruct button, they were referring to the machine. They clearly needed to get rid of it.
Yeah, the machine, I forgot to mention. So yeah, they needed to get rid of the machine, and there's a self-destruct button on it.
Of course there is! Why wouldn't there be a very obvious way for the good guys to stop you that they probably should have used from the very beginning?
You think they would have done that themselves, consider it's labeled?
It's a very, very big label too.
It's there for anybody to see and touch. It's not
You know?
even under lock and key. There's nothing like that.
Yes, I am clever like that. And he wiggles his eyebrows forever. We didn't mention this, but he likes to wiggle his eyebrows a lot.
Oh yes, I am the efficiency expert after all.
Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
Oh boy. So they get out of Santa's shop in time to see Santa just waking up, like nothing has ever happened, takes his toys and takes his sleigh and his reindeers along with Comet, who rejoins the herd.
On Donner, on Blitzen, on... Wait, where's Comet? Oh, there you are, Comet.
Pretty much. At this point, the special is drawing to a close, but right before the end credits roll, the very last line is pronounced by Alexander G. Wolf himself. And I have to be honest with you, that line of dialogue, the first time I heard it, floored me. Not just because it was completely unexpected to hear that kind of line at the end of what has been pretty much a basic Christmas special of the time,
Yeah.
but also because it was surprisingly profound and insightful. The line recites more or less like this: I think I'm going to like goodness more than I like badness, but I don't think anyone can say that for sure, unless they tried them both. Huh.
That's a very unusual message for the time that it was made in.
That is both a bold message and a very surprisingly truthful message as well. Here we have a character who was basically raised to be bad, who knew nothing but being bad, who's been offered a second chance at goodness by people who actually cared about him, and that gave him a new appreciation of what being good is all about. And he is able to appreciate that because he knew what it was like to fall down the right path, to do wrong, to have no other alternative, or not having anyone. So this is an interesting and profound message about the duality of humanity, the dichotomy of good and evil, right and wrong, what it means to be good and what it means to be bad, to truly comprehend what goodness is, which you cannot do if you do not understand what being bad is. So essentially, if you do not make mistakes, you are not able to learn from them, and you cannot mature as a person. I was not expecting an existentialist morale at the end of Raggedy Ann and Andy in the Great Santa Claus Caper, to say the least.
They're acknowledging that they know that people can be bad, but good as well, but can appreciate being good if they know what the consequences of being bad is.
Yes, we both have the capacity to be good or bad.
Which I think is very true in children, essentially. So it's kind of true to children in real life, essentially, that being selfish is considered bad, as long as you understand.
But they need to learn it. Well, how about that? Well played, Chuck Jones. Well played.
And thank you, Alexander, for
Yes, Alexander turned out to be a much better character than it had any right to be. All the characters in this were pretty good.
Yeah,
Andy was funny, Anne was incredibly charming and cute. Comet had her moments too. This was nice.
I think the entire special is like that. It basically has its own charm about it. It's its own thing, essentially, that you can't help but appreciate it. Especially since it was an animated feature from the 70s.
It was a troubled decade for animation.
It certainly was a troubled decade for animation, but at least there was some good that came out of it. And plus, it's very good to learn from history of animation, at least, despite how bad it was. It kind of shows you, what the era was like and the perceptions of the people at the time when it comes to animation.
Mm-hmm.
I've already said this before, but I always find history interesting. So being able to experience the era of the animation at the time gives you a lot of insight into not only the creators of whatever you're watching, but also the perceptions of the people, what they expected to be on television at the time.
Very well said. So, Devar, and
Yeah?
you people listening to this, do you think Raggedy Ann and Andy in the Great Santa Claus Caper is a good TV special? Say it with me now. Yes! There, we decided it for you. Aren't you glad?
Yes, aren't you glad at all? Don't you want your YouTube video to last forever and not be taken down by silly things like ad revenue debacles?
Now you can with Gloopstick.
Gloopstick! You can trust me, I am the inefficiency expert.
You see? Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Oh, boy.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so I guess we can both agree that overall this was a really charming but otherwise pretty basic Christmas special with a surprisingly thoughtful message at the end.
Yes, I can agree with that, at least.
It might just be what the doctor ordered. And that doctor is, of course, Alexander G. Wolf.
Here, have some Gloopstick to help you with that.
It will cure all illnesses. Yes.
By making them unbreakable.
Oh, we need a cure for holiday consumerism. Real bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And I do believe that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I have been Madhog T. Muster, a podcast expert.
And I have been Duvar, A. Arkvaron, the man with no plans.
We shall bid you a farewell and a good night and a Merry Christmas in September to all of you. And remember, whatever you do, don't fight around the world.
Don't dress up as Andy and fight around the world.
Yes, don't be a Raggedy Andy. Be a Raggedy Ann. And just challenge people to death battles with a Klingon war cry. Okay, one last time for the memories. Yes!
All together again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!
A glum, glum pumpkin, and there's some crumb something wrong with me. There's no song with me. Oh, can't you see that? Car 44, car 44. Roscoe speaking. Sergeant, sir, you may find this difficult to believe, but I have just witnessed something unique. I have just observed the following. One jogger, male, exceeding the speed limit by at least 30 miles an hour. One pumpkin color, also exceeding the speed limit by at least 20 miles an hour. One cat color, disturbing the peace. 3 ghosts, one with 4 wheels. Wheels, not feet. No, sir. There is no record of insanity in my family. No, sir. Not until today, that is.
there everyone, welcome to Dramatis Sermo, the Halloween special! Woo! Spooky noises, woohoo, trick or treat or...
Yes, and lots of laughing.
Yes. As promised, we are about to tackle the Halloween special of Raggedy Ann and Andy by Chuck Jones. We already reviewed the Christmas special from 1978, so it's time for the subsequent Halloween special of 1979. I am your host, Madhog, thy ghoulish master.
And I am Devilashish Akvaronish.
I don't get it.
I was trying to put devilish in there.
Well,
but...
at least you tried.
That's what Raggedy Ann would be happy for.
Yes, at least you tried. And you know what? They tried, and I think they succeeded this time.
Yeah, I think so too.
In fact, I want to right off the bat point out what are the differences in quality between this special and the previous one. As we established last time, we don't actually have to do a lot of preamble this time around. The Christmas special was a pretty average, pretty straightforward special with a surprisingly good message at the end that was ultimately rather clunky in the execution. There is a lot of characters staring at the screen and at the audience, explaining what the plot is.
Yeah.
And there is a hell of a lot more of Les Tremaine than any doctor would dare to recommend.
Yeah.
If you ask me, the Halloween special, which is also Chuck Jones directed, it's about as charming as the Christmas special, but I think it's superior in almost every other way.
It definitely feels like that, like it's a bit more honed and polished, this one, compared to the other one.
I noticed a improvement in the animation quality in this one. Maybe it had a better budget. Definitely the character animation is much better, tends to be a lot more organic and complements the scene and the comedic timing a lot better. The writing also is much better. It isn't just better compared to the Great Santa Claus Caper. I think it's better than most Halloween specials that have ever been made. In fact, I dare say this is one of the best Halloween specials ever made, in my opinion. Then again, the bar for that tends not to be really high.
I mean, what else is there to challenge that trophy? Charlie Brown? You see what I mean, right? There's not very many takers for that trophy.
No, not really.
Raggedy Ann Andy, though, compared to most Halloween specials, definitely does feel a lot more, whole as a narrative.
It's whole and wholesome. Like I said, the writing is much better. Not only is much better, but it is also legitimately funny. Everyone in this special provides quite a unique performance that facilitates a wholesome night of laughter on the audience's part.
For me, it was more of an amused grin at times.
Yes, well, there were a few laugh-out-loud moments, for me at least.
There was one laugh-out-loud moment for me.
Before we start recounting the events in the Halloween special of Raggedy Ann and Andy, cheers!
Yes, cheers. But it's not a musical adventure.
Yes, it is especially much better and much more whole than a musical adventure could ever hope to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
The story and ultimately the moral that this special goes for tends to be fairly atypical for the genre, the very specific genre of Halloween specials, that is, because it chooses not to pursue the usual motif, shall we say, the marketable Halloween themes, which is to say, the scary, spooky stuff.
I was gonna say, recounting the history of how Halloween came to be.
Also that, but mostly the spooky, scary stuff. Or spoopy. You know, if you're in 2015.
Whichever one still is, apparently.
Okay. Everybody wishes they were still in 2015, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, what the special chooses to pursue thematically is more akin to recontextualizing the Halloween festivity as a celebration of childhood. And it's about just that, childhood, and about the fact that you don't need to be a child to experience the joy and innocence of childhood, even if you're a jaded adult. And I have to say, that makes it for quite a special, for lack of a better word. Which is strange, because that's usually reserved for a Christmas special. You know, that kind of wholesome innocence and joy of childhood message and all that jazz.
Basically, hey, even if you're an adult, the magic is never gone of that season of Christmas.
Yes,
but
because
case,
of that, it is quite refreshing to see that message applied to Halloween. Because, like I said, it's not very marketable to focus on that if it's Halloween. But, it's all about the spoopy stuff.
Well, yeah, true. And it kind of makes sense, really, considering that most adults wouldn't take Halloween as a very serious festivity.
But that was never the point, was it? To be serious.
No.
I mean, most people don't even know what the origins of Halloween are. Everybody knows where Christmas comes from, even if you add a pagan Saint Nicholas in it. But nobody knows where Hell of Eves really is from or what it's meant to celebrate. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what it is right now. It was a festivity about harvest or something like that. And I believe it comes from Ireland. And there was not even a pumpkin originally.
It was a turnip, actually.
It was a turnip, yes. It was the Halloween turnip.
Yeah, so essentially, Halloween was essentially an Irish thing, where basically a superstition where people who are harvesting thought demons would steal the crop, essentially, I believe.
The modern incarnation of Halloween could not possibly be more different from its alleged origins. But it doesn't matter, you know why? Because Halloween should be really about going out and having fun, being a kid, ask for candy, and if they do not give you candy, you can act like a pest, because it's the one night a year you can do that. You can be a child and have fun.
And not like Christmas, where you have to be a good person.
First, you need to be a bad person so that you can appreciate how being good feels like.
That's why Halloween's here, for us to be bad on that one night, so that we can appreciate being good.
We're off to a great start, okay. So, this is the Raggedy Ann and Andy last TV special, by Chuck Jones at least, and last period.
Yeah.
The Pumpkin Who Wouldn't Smile. Okay, so we begin with the most horrible thing I've ever seen, which is this hacked up, horribly edited introduction, which is nothing but a few scenes from the actual special, poorly cut out and edited together to look remotely like a presentation, and it's about as jarring as it is confusing to look at.
Yeah, especially since all it's just there is it's just to introduce the characters and who voices those characters.
Yes, June Foray and Mr. Butler do reprise their roles as Anne and Andy.
For better and for worse.
For better and for best. What are you talking about? They are perfectly cast for those roles. Yeah. There is nothing inherently wrong about this. And speaking of nothing inherently wrong, Les Tremaine is back as a sad pumpkin. The titular pumpkin who wouldn't smile. They should really call it the pumpkin who was a super emo and depressed everybody. Poor pumpkin. My gosh. Pumpkin. Yes, it's the whiniest pumpkin in the universe. Remember when Alexander G. Wolf broke down in tears and cried and started talking like this? That's the pumpkin. Yes. That is the sad pumpkin for 20 minutes. I hope you enjoy that.
It does get kind of grating after a while, though.
Yes, but the special is actually refreshingly very much self-aware about that.
Yeah, it is aware about that, that's for sure.
In fact, speaking of that, I mentioned how the writing is much better. It is much better partly because it is far more comedy-oriented and it is much more self-aware. Whereas the last year's special was only self-aware when it came to talk down to the audience.
Yeah.
There is a lot less talking down to the audience in this one. The dialogues feel a lot more organic, especially the various exchanges in between Anne and Andy, as we'll get to them.
I think we don't talk about the hacked up intro, essentially.
There isn't much to say about that. It's just a few scenes awfully cut down and edited together by some sort of hack job editor that shall not receive treats, only tricks this year, let me tell you. And then the special properly starts with the said pumpkin crying a whole lot. And when he cries
pumpkin seeds.
That's a nice detail.
That is really nice, and probably is going to grow more pumpkins.
Oh no, they are multiplying. Also, the implications are quite dire, because the seeds are basically inside of him, so it's like he's crying blood.
Yeah, but again, isn't he hollowed out, so that means he shouldn't have them anymore, but yet he still cries them?
I mean, if you want to go down that path, he doesn't even look like a pumpkin, he looks like a gourd. Maybe that's the problem, he's a gourd, that's why nobody wants him at Halloween.
He's a confused gourd.
Oh, gender identity issues, this special is deep.
This is not
you
what I meant.
waltzed right into that, Davar. Thank you for that.
God dang it.
Okay, so we are also introduced to the said pumpkin's neighbor, the most sympathetic character in the short, a mouse.
Who is just nodding and shaking its head.
Yes, he tries to console him, or at least to hear him out, up until he's just fed up with his constant whining, so he ends up renting his hole and leaving with a briefcase and everything.
That was really amusing.
Yes, that's already. It's details like this that put this special on a pedestal compared to the previous one. It is better in almost every way. Again, if you don't count the really hack job they did in the editing department here and there, not just when it comes to the opening, mind you. I mean, it's kind of painful to look at how much effort and passion was poured into this animation, only for it to be partially compromised by some lazy editing.
Yeah, oh well, we can't have everything, sadly.
So whilst the pumpkin is still occupying himself by crying tears of seed,
yeah, tears of seeds down his feces.
Oh boy, that's a fanfiction waiting to happen.
Yeah, and
we slowly pan towards the nearby town, for it is Halloween night.
And everyone is off trick-or-treating, going trick-or-treating, like the same kids going to the same houses every year.
If you look at the opening title credits, again, mentioning one last time the hacked up opening, the various townspeople speaking and their dogs are actually credited as random people and dogs. I think this implies that they must have captured some audio from actual people in the streets and their dogs, but I don't think that's the case. It's too precise. We cut to Raggedy Ann and Andy looking very disgruntled, looking with vengeful intent at the nearby neighborhood house,
which houses a sad little boy.
Yes, there is a sad little boy, but you know what? Unlike the pumpkin, he's not whining all the time, so he's got that going on for him.
Oh yeah, he definitely has that going.
So anyway, they are giving the nasty eye to the neighborhood house, mostly because they are concerned about the boy, which is named Ralph, and I wonder if it's a callback to Ralph the Wolf.
Probably not, but still.
It's a rather common name, Ralph.
Yeah, true.
Plenty of Ralph to go around. That came out wrong. Okay, so the reason why the sad boy is sad is because Aunt Agatha is the death of fun.
Yes, she definitely is.
She's only on screen for about 2 minutes, but my gosh, she's a riot.
I mean, she's giving Ebenezer Scrooge a run for his money.
That's a nice pun, unintentional too. Okay, so when a couple of kids decide to make the unfortunate decision of going to trick-or-treat on her house, she responds by calling Halloween nothing but bribery, a criminal act, and threatens to call the police on them.
If they try and do any tricks on her.
Yes, and my gosh, she's a piece of work, and I love her.
Yeah. She's definitely played it straight, that's for sure.
The voice actress plays the character straight, but the actual lines of dialogue are so out there that the contrast makes it even more hilarious than it was intended to be. Which I figure it was not intended to be hilarious to begin with, but it actually was. So I'm happy.
Everybody's happy.
Oh, Aunt Agatha, we'll get back to you soon enough. Back to the evil dolls.
Of Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Yes, they are discussing a plan of action to save Halloween for that one sad boy and get back at the aunt. Yeah, she'll get hers.
She's got what's coming to her.
Yeah. Raggedy Andy is particularly funny in this one. He is brutal. While discussing a plan of action on how to deal with Aunt Agatha, Andy suggests the option of threatening her with income tax invasion.
I must admit, that one actually took me by surprise that he even touched that.
That's great and always topical. So, and then Anne comes with the sudden realization that all they need to make the boys' Halloween Halloween special, if you will, is to procure a pumpkin. So she yells it out loud, "Pumpkin!" To which Andy responds, "What do you mean, pumpkin? You're always saying pumpkin." Bye-bye, fourth wall. At this point, I like to imagine what their regular conversations are like. Anne and Andy go out to get an ice cream. Andy asks, "Okay, what flavor would you like?" She yells, "Pumpkin!" They're doing crosswords. Andy says, "Okay, so it's a fruit? Pumpkin!" But there are not enough letters for pumpkin. And then he says, "Hey, would you like to see Halloweeny?" And she yells, "Pumpkin weenie!"
Pumpkin weenie!
I have put too much thought into this.
I can tell.
This dialogue is so unexpectedly clever.
Yeah, it's really good for what it is.
Before they leave the house in search of the pumpkin, they need to figure out how to carry the pumpkin at this point in time. Anna calls in her secret weapon, and down comes Raggedy Arthur, the bloody dog, on a skateboard, doing some Tony Hawk Pro tricks.
Hey, what can I say? He's been playing that game for hours, so he wants to show off how well he can do those tricks himself.
We just received confirmation that Raggedy Arthur is the Poochie of the Raggedy franchise. Look at him. He's always skating during this entire Halloween special. My gosh. It's not Raggedy Arthur. They should rename him into Totally Rad Arthur. Totally Rad Arthur.
You mean Totally Raggedy Arthur?
No, I'm sorry. I have to flank your idea.
No, seriously, it's Raggedy, Raggedy.
Okay, you lost it immediately, never mind. I'm having so much fun narrating this, you have no idea. Okay, so the trio of Raggedy Ann, Andy, and Totally Rad Arthur...
Raggedy Arthur.
Whatever, embark on a mission to find the perfect pumpkin for a sad little boy. Yeah. And of course, they come across the titular pumpkin who wouldn't smile, which has been crying this entire time. At this point, there are so many seeds around it.
It's probably made another pile for another harvest. I have to say one thing that I really liked while they were actually journeying to get the pumpkin. Raggedy Andy came up with an idea as they were walking, and it caught me off guard that he would recommend it. Why don't we just steal a pumpkin? And I'm like, what?
Raggedy Andy.
Yeah, Raggedy Andy recommended, why don't we steal a pumpkin? And Anne was all like, no, we can't do that.
Although she considered it for a second. It's more like she was saying that to herself more than Andy. No, that's wrong. Stealing is wrong. But brainwashing people while they are asleep with hypnotic suggestion is totally A-okay. And we'll get to that later.
Yes, we will. The reason Anne decided not to go for that option is because another boy would be so sad. Well, another child, she said, actually.
No, actually, something weird happens earlier on in which she was about to say the word child, but she stops herself and said kid instead.
Yeah, I never got that.
That was weird, and I have to wonder if June Foray actually flubbed a line and corrected herself and they did not bother to edit it. Which, again, fits with the motif of good animation, bad editing. Like, for example, that one time in which Raggedy Andy is cut in the middle of a sentence to cut to Anne saying something.
Oh, yeah.
That is so evident. The same argument as before. It saddens me.
Yeah.
They eventually get to the gourd, I mean the pumpkin.
The glum pumpkin, or should I call him the glumkin?
The glumkin. Okay, sure. So the less Tremaine glumkin is suddenly very elated at the prospect that I am going to make a child happy.
Yeah, but suddenly the glum pumpkin is smiling a lot.
The mouse is long gone by this point.
Probably for the best.
Okay, so the reason why they needed Arthur for this, they really did not need him so much as they needed his skateboard. So the great idea here is to transport the Glumkin using a skateboard. I should point out at this point that the pumpkin is currently located atop a fairly steep hill. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, surely nothing will go possibly wrong at all.
And then, the most amazing pumpkin loose on a skateboard doll chase sequence begins.
Oh yeah, they definitely do a chase sequence.
They clearly use this chase sequence to pad out the length of the special, but you know what? I'm not complaining. I was delighted the entire time.
It's definitely a lot more entertaining and amusing, more so than nonchalantly going back down the hill with no problems.
I mean, it goes on for a long time, but there is a lot happening during it. For starters, they all chased the pumpkin, I'm sorry, I meant to say the glumkin, on a skateboard as it goes through a guy's house, as said guy, random guy, opens up the door to his house. The pumpkin goes through it, and then the dolls come after it, saying hello to the guy, as he just stares at them all with the deadest of deadpan expressions. And then he looks at the camera and says, "Nice costumes." And that's about it.
that made me giggle actually a bit. When he said that.
It is physical, reaction-based comedy at its finest. Simply describing it cannot do it justice. You need to watch it for yourself. But let it be known that Chuck Jones might be one of the best at this very specific kind of humor, at reactions, specifically to goofy situations, as we'll see more of along the way. Do you remember that one Looney Tunes episode from the 50s in which everybody reacts differently to the smallest elephant in the world?
I think I have a vague memory of that one.
Yes, that entire short was about people reacting to the elephant. It didn't have so much a plot as just people, random people, reacting to the fact that there is a very small elephant and they all do it differently. And the comedy erupts from those different reactions. So during the chase, all the dolls end up accidentally bumping into the classic white sheets that are inexplicably out drying at night.
Speaking of which, actually, this guy has not only a wagon that they just stole, but they also stole 2 unicycles from this guy.
They re-emerged from the house with monocycles. So they are riding monocycles while they are covered in white sheets.
So let me get this straight, Raggedy Ann. We're not gonna steal a pumpkin, but it's okay to steal a wagon and 2 unicycles.
a jogger, which was inexplicably dressed like a Greek philosopher.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a costume, but anyway, a jogger just passes by, sees them, pretty much
running away.
like Sonic speed, and then all of these people, the jogger, the pumpkin on a skateboard, and the 3 dolls on motorcycles with white sheets on top of them, they pass by a police car with the police officer that looks at all of this, doesn't know how to react, and then decides to report the happening to the local police office.
Yeah. Sir, you're not gonna believe this, but I just saw a jogger. He was going like 30 miles per hour over the speed limit.
And he was chased by a pumpkin on a skateboard and 3 ghosts, I repeat, 3 ghosts on motorcycles.
3 ghosts with wheels.
I love the deadpan expression of the police commissioner as he listens to all of this, only for the aforementioned ghosts and pumpkin to just erupt in his own office right in front of him and pass him by.
That was great. That was great, actually.
Yes, you know what ruins it? The fact that the policeman's sentence afterwards was cut off again by the terrible editing, because otherwise this whole sequence was comedy gold. Again, whomever edited all this, they made some pretty terrible mistakes.
Untidy jobs.
Anyway, so they finally, after all of that, they car crash their way to their allotted destination.
And they all start laughing.
Yes, we almost died today. That was fun. Let's do it again.
Well, the pumpkin has a chance of dying, but Raggedy Ann and Andy be fine as long as they don't, end up getting their fluff unfluffed out of their bodies, I guess.
You know, this is how my brain works. As soon as you painted that mental image to me,
yeah.
I thought that Goat Simulator needs a Raggedy Ann mode. In which the goat is replaced by Raggedy Ann or Andy.
If you saw the scene where Raggedy Andy was all
twisted.
That's kind of like how the graphics and the models of Goat Simulator work.
But, jokes aside, I really, really enjoy these characters. I think Andy and Ann have slowly but surely become personal favorites of mine. They did not just brought joy to my jaded, dark heart with this nostalgic chase sequence, but they also had fun themselves doing it.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So they managed to lift up the gourd kin to the room of the boy.
Yeah, after some sick, sweet moves by Arthur to get the pulley up the tree.
To show off how poochy he is.
Yes. Show off him twirling around Raggedy Ann and Andy at one point.
Yes, the animation for him is actually quite good. I like how confidently he finishes his sick moves by crossing his legs. Looking all cool. Arthur, calm yourself. The 90s aren't due for 11 more years.
Raggedy Arthur foretold the 90s.
Totally raggedy. Arthur. Damn it, Devar. Okay, so the boy is finally reunited for the first time with the pumpkin.
Oh, you're the most beautifulest pumpkin I've ever seen.
I love you. Well, this turned into a weird fanfiction.
I mean, he takes the pumpkin to bed with him too.
And he hugs him so tightly.
So tightly.
Also, he makes the weirdest facial expressions too.
Yes, he does. Just for the pumpkin. I mean, it's like if Kevin Owens was hugging Sami Zayn really tight.
Well, it's happening. It has happened. Oh, this is said pumpkin and is my best friend. The boy is happy now. The pumpkin is happy. Everybody's happy. Except for
Raggedy
one.
Ann.
Well, I was going to say Aunt Agatha, because now we have the real climax. And oh boy, do I love this sequence. So essentially, the way that Anne puts it, it sounds like they were going to kill Aunt Agatha, smothering her with their pillow or beating her up to death. We have some unfinished business. And Andy seems to be ready for a fight, because he loves to fight, fighting around the world and all that.
I should mention at this point, actually, my sweetheart was watching this with me, my fiancée. She asked me the question, why does Raggedy Andy sound like he's drunk? And looks it.
Especially when he pulls out a banjo out of nowhere and starts playing it with the doofiest expression.
We'll get to why he's doing that.
So this is actually sort of creepy. They sneak in Aunt Agatha's room, and freaking Raggedy Ann also slowly approaches her from behind like a monster coming out of her bed and starts whispering hypnotic suggestions in her ear, while Andy pulls out a banjo again out of nowhere and starts playing it with a seductive face. I guess I can put it like that.
It's his you wanna bang face.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it hasn't stopped Chucky, so I guess.
Oh gosh.
I actually want to see that crossover now.
No.
Raggedy Ann and Andy versus Chucky the Killer Doll.
Oh gosh.
I mean, they did use the Annabelle doll for The Conjuring, so... Oh boy. So essentially, by brainwashing Aunt Agatha with hypnotic suggestions, they convince her that being a kid is good, being a jaded adult is bad. So go celebrate Halloween with your nephew.
So then you could be reminding of yourself of what it's like to being a child and let go of all your adult issues.
Essentially. So I guess the moral is that brainwash saves Halloween?
Yes?
It's good?
Maybe?
Well, okay, I'm just being slightly facetious here, but...
Yes, I'm being silly.
But this was genuinely funny. So the special concludes with Aunt Agatha dressed as a witch, which was the costume she used to have when she was 9. I'm surprised it still fits her, considering.
I wonder how she got all that. Did she just cut up the curtains really quick? Or did she just decide to wear the 9-year-old outfit?
Wow, she must have been quite big when she was 9. So she and Ralph and the pumpkin who could smile, they go out trick-or-treating. By the way, Ralphie is dressed like a mustached pirate.
I love his mustache, by the way.
It's nice. And the special concludes and finishes with Raggedy Ann and Andy giving us a merry Hallow and a happy ween, apparently. This was such a joyful, fun watch.
Despite some minor issues, which is just basically the
hack editing, yes.
Yeah, the hack editing at times. At one point, you feel like the whining could grate on you, but from the pumpkin, that is.
But they know when to stop with that.
Well, overall, it's a very good watch. I would say it's very funny and fun to watch. And it's definitely a refreshing take on Halloween. I mean, it's no wonder the American people actually hold this Halloween special in high regard.
Don't just watch it during Halloween. Watch it at any point in time during the year. It's guaranteed to put a big ol' smile on your sad, jaded, depressed face. That's all I have to say about that. Merry Hallow and Happy Ween to all of you. This has been Madhog, thy ghoulish master of the net.
And I have been Devilish Vakvaron.
It works even better the second time.
Yeah, and joined by Raggedy Arthur.
Totally rad! Skateboards away.
Skateboards all over your house.
And Anne yells pumpkin for no real reason.
Pumpkin!
Pumpkin! Okay, bye now. Have a safe night.
Yeah, good night, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Spooky night.
Car 44, car 44. Roscoe speaking. Sergeant, sir, you may find this difficult to believe, but I have just witnessed something unique, I think, in the annals of crime.
There are some downright freakishly scary things that reside in this world. Some are well known, and some are not. Whether you believe in the supernatural or you don't, many reported cases of paranormal activity still seem to intrigue and mystify. Hauntings are most usually related to places, houses, or cemeteries, and sometimes even people. But what if an object other than these is reportedly haunted, say a supposedly simple, benign doll, for instance? Would you believe it was true? Annabelle was the focus of a case that got the attention of famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. They became interested in Annabelle in the early 1970s. This episode in their career was included in the book The Demonologist by Gerald Brittle about the Warrens. It has been stated that this is one of the most unusual cases of a possessed object on record. This is Annabelle's story. In 1970, a mother, doting on her only daughter, purchased a Raggedy Ann doll from an antique store. The cute red-headed little doll was a present for her daughter, Donna. Donna was, at that time, residing with her roommate, Angie, in a small apartment and preparing to graduate from college. Thinking nothing more of the doll than that it was a sign of her mother's affection, she placed the doll on her bed in her room and basically forgot about it. As time passed, both Angie and Donna noticed an air of strangeness about the doll. Apparently the doll would move. These were relatively subtle movements at first, like a change in position, but as time passed, the movements became more noticeable. The doll was even found once standing upright, leaning against a chair, with its legs crossed. After a while, the doll was said to have actually changed rooms. It would be left in the living room before Donna left for work, and upon returning, it would be found on her bed, in her room. A moving doll? Very strange indeed. About a month later, Donna began to find what she thought were penciled messages. They appeared to be written in the handwriting of a small child, scribbled and almost illegible on a parchment paper. It could be seen that the messages clearly stated, "Help us," or "Help Lou." Donna was uncertain of exactly who the "us" was. Apparently Donna has never kept that type of paper in the house either, so where did the paper come from? Could it have been conjured by the doll itself? Could a doll possibly be writing messages? If so, how? Donna came home one night to find the doll had moved once again. Only this time, Donna felt as though something was off. A menacing presence seemed to emulate from the doll, and she had the deepest urge to inspect it for some reason. What she found would haunt her forever. The doll had blood on it. Blood, or what seemed to be blood. A liquid-like red substance appeared on both the back of its hands and its chest. Now completely scared and desperate for help, Donna decided it was time to seek an expert. Something was going on, and she wanted answers. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Donna decided to contact a medium. The medium agreed, and a séance was held. Apparently there was in fact a spirit taking up residence in the doll, and her name was Annabelle Higgins. From what the medium could determine, Annabelle Higgins was a young girl of only 7 when her lifeless body was found in the field upon which the apartment complex now stands. The details of her death never came to light. The so-called spirit basically took up residence in the doll and wanted to stay. Seeing no harm in it, and feeling sorry for what the spirit had experienced in life, Donna agreed. The true nature of this entity had yet to be revealed. Lou, a friend of Donna's, was less than thrilled with the doll. On numerous occasions, Lou warned Angie that the doll felt threatening and sinister. Something was off, and Lou knew it. Lou's dislike of the doll was well known. He would have more than one terrifying experience with Annabelle. Here is the story of Lou's experience as related by the Warrens themselves. Lou awoke one night from a deep sleep and in panic. Once again, he had had a reoccurring bad dream. Only this time, somehow, something seemed different. It was as though he was awake, but couldn't move. He looked around the room, but couldn't discern anything out of the ordinary. And then it happened. Looking down towards his feet, he saw the doll. Annabelle? It began to slowly glide up his leg, move over his chest, and then stopped. Within seconds, the doll was strangling him. Paralyzed and gasping for breath, Lou, at the point of asphyxiation, blacked out. Lou awoke the next morning, certain it wasn't a dream. Lou was determined to rid himself of that doll and the spirit that possessed it. Lou, however, would have one more terrifying experience with Annabelle. Preparing for a road trip the next day, Lou and Angie were reading over maps alone in her apartment. The apartment seemed eerily quiet. Suddenly, rustling sounds coming from Donna's room aroused fear that someone had possibly broken into the apartment. Lou, determined to figure out who or what it was, quietly made his way to the bedroom door. He waited for the noises to stop before entering and turning on the light. The room was empty, except for Annabelle, whom was tossed on the floor in the corner. Lou scoured the room for forced entry, but nothing was out of place. but as he got close to the doll, he got the distinct impression that somebody was behind him. Spinning around, he was quick to realize that nobody else was there. Then, in flash, he found himself grabbing for his chest, doubled over, cut and bleeding. His shirt was stained with blood, and upon opening his shirt, there on his chest was what looked to be 7 distinct claw marks, 3 vertical and 4 horizontal. All were hot like burns. These scratches healed almost immediately. Half gone the next day, and fully gone by day 2. Annabelle, The Curse of the Devil Doll, Warrens.net, 2010. As the entity finally revealed its true purpose in nature. Usually claw marks in a paranormal situation relates to a demonic entity. Demonic entities usually lead to cases of possession. The doll may just be a temporary anchor to the physical world. Possession of a human body may be its true intent. A human possession would make it almost impossible for the demon to be extricated from our world, making the interaction between the spiritual and physical worlds much easier to manipulate. Due to the nature of Lou's experiences, the doll was no longer believed to be a docile spirit, but inhuman and demonic in nature. Donna decided to contact a priest. Bringing in the big guns seemed like the best way to go. Father Hegan was the priest they contacted. With his help, their case was referred to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren immediately took interest in the case and contacted Donna concerning the doll. The Warrens, after speaking with Donna, Angie, and Lou, came to the immediate conclusion that the doll itself was not in fact possessed, but manipulated by an inhuman presence. Spirits do not possess inanimate objects like houses or toys. They possess people. An inhuman spirit can attach itself to a place or object, and this is what occurred in the Annabelle case. The spirit manipulated the doll and created the illusion of it being alive in order to get recognition. Truly, the spirit was not looking to stay attached to the doll. It was looking to possess a human host. The spirit, or in this case, inhuman demonic spirit, was essentially in the infestation stage of the phenomenon. It first began moving the doll around the apartment by means of teleportation to arouse the occupants' curiosity in hopes that they would give it recognition. Then, predictably, the medium was brought into the apartment to communicate with it. The inhuman spirit was now able to communicate through the medium and preyed on the girl's emotional vulnerabilities by pretending to be a rather harmless, lost young girl. During the seance, it was allowed permission to haunt the apartment, insofar as a demon is a negative spirit. It then set about causing patently negative phenomena to occur. It aroused fear through the doll's weird movements, brought about materialization of disturbing handwritten notes, created symbolic drops of blood on the doll, and ultimately attacked Lou, leaving behind the symbolic mark of the beast. The next stage of the infestation phenomenon would have been complete human possession. Had these experiences lasted another 2 or 3 more weeks, the spirit would have completely possessed, if not harmed or killed, one or all of the occupants in the house. Annabelle, The Curse of the Devil Dolls, Warrens.net, 2010. An actual exorcism was conducted on the doll before they left, hoping it would rid Annabelle of the infectious demon. Upon the conclusion of the investigation, Ed and Lorraine decided the best course of action to prevent the spirit from doing further harm was to relieve Donna of its presence and to take the doll home with them. They weren't completely sure if the doll had been exorcised. I hope you enjoyed this recounting of this tale. Should you ever want to visit the famous Annabelle, she can be found at the Warren Occult Museum in Moodus, Connecticut. The museum is run by Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigator, and now frequent guest on the television show Paranormal State. Warren relates that Annabelle still moves about occasionally, and is still known to make growling noises at unsuspecting visitors.